Hey everybody, Roll the Lines UK, Matt and Ash here. We are going to be breaking down the offensive line class for 2025. Hope everyone's well. If you've got any questions for the show, get them in ASAP. We're just getting set up. But boys, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Finally, after a couple of obviously the misdemeanor a couple of weeks ago, not playing. Backs are playing flag football. Plus, Villa are very, very close to contending maybe for a trophy this season, putting to bed a lot of the jokes at my expense.
I mean, don't you dare have an open top bus parade if you win, though, because, everyone have a go at you for it.
I don't get that. Newcastle, in number one, it looked amazing. Number two, Newcastle deserved it. It's the first time they've won a trophy in a while. The fans wanted to celebrate. What's the big deal?
Completely agree. And actually, absolutely love the outpouring of love and support from Newcastle fans for Liverpool fans supporting the parade. Like, to a man, basically. All the Liverpool fans have been going, yeah, makes sense. I'd probably do the same. So, yeah. I don't get it.
I've said to my manager at work, because I was there for the first half, because obviously when it kicks off here, I was like, if we do win the final, I don't care. I'm like calling in sick at work whenever the parade is. I'm going to be there. And he was like, yeah, back it, because he's a Man U fan. So he's on the downturn of having those kind of things. He gets it at least.
I remember the parade when Liverpool won the league and there was more than 1 million people there. And yeah, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, Ant-Man, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Cheers.
Good. Brent is in the building, Carlton, Bob O'Lan, Lisa Di Lorenzo. If you're in the chat and you want to say hi, come say hi. Brent's asking about mile marker 301 because he hasn't seen him in a while. I haven't seen mile marker in the chat actually for a little bit.
He was in the college ones last week.
He was. Cool. Okay. That's good news.
I think.
Good news. Okay, we've got a lot of news to get through.
Sorry.
That's okay. You can't be anyone but yourself, so...
True.
We can gloss over it, I guess. We have got 10 prospects to discuss in detail, and then we will chat about the rest of the first round picks, potential first round picks, as we have done in all of these draft class shows. Anything we need to go through? Do we think? No? Okay. All right. Ready? Aren't you good? Okay, here we go.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Roll the Lines UK podcast, episode 332, 50 Shades of O-Line. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Anthony Fitzpatrick and Ashley Soden. How you doing, boys?
Doing good. Spring has finally sprung here in the UK, and it's getting a bit too warm already. Give me a bit of a cool breeze, please.
2 weeks of glorious sunshine. I can't wait. Got time off to go out and enjoy it now, which is going to be absolutely awesome. So, yeah, and commiserations to all of you over there in Michigan, because I know a load of massive storms went through yesterday. So hopefully you're all right there as well. But it's nice and warm here, so we'll take the good weather for you.
It is very nice over here, actually, I have to admit, even though it's pretty chilly in the mornings, but by the time it gets to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's absolutely glorious, so we're making the most of it. We are talking offensive line, of course, as I alluded to in the title, featuring Grey Zabel, hence the 50 Shades, if you did not get to the reference, but there we go. Zabel is, in fact, isn't it? Not Zabel. Is it Zabel? I think it is.
I think it's Zabel.
So, is it Zabel?
I've heard it's Zabel, so yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, never mind. Who cares? We are going to be getting through the news first of all, though, for the Lions. But first, don't forget to join our Discord channel. Links in the live chat right now or in the audio pod description. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be hot for the draft, which, of course, is in 3.5 weeks' time. And our draft show is going to be bigger and better than ever. We're going to have more guests than you can shake a stick at. It's going to be from around the NFL at large. And we will be live throughout on days 1, 2, and 3 with catch-up shows. And if you've seen some of the guests we've had on the past, especially the team-specific ones, we've had some terrific guests over the years in this show and then through the season in particular. We're bringing them all back. So we'll hope you check us out for the draft, especially when it gets into the doldrums. A lot of people do round 1, and some will do rounds 2 and 3 in day 2, but very few are live through day 3. through all of those 7 or 8 hours and whatever it is, and we have the best show around. So do come and support that, and do like this episode as well and sub to the podcast. You guys know what that does for us, and support Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's project of building investing Lions. I can't speak today. Lions content creators together. And is on there very regularly as guests on various shows. I think he was on one today, although it's probably not going to be put on for a little bit. You were on with Dan, weren't you, earlier?
No.
No? Oh, I thought you were. Oh.
No.
No. I saw his messages and I was like, I think that's happened. Never mind.
You wanted me to wait up till 2 a.m. I couldn't make it, so I was in bed.
Fair. That's fair. Hey, did you have the bottle of rum that you said you had in reserve?
I had half a bottle of rum. I got absolutely blindsided. So yeah, it was fun. Just drunk a load of rum and ginger and had a nice evening. So it was good. It was good.
With Twitch affiliated, YouTube monetized, there's a tip jar down below in the YouTube description. So if you're enjoying what you're listening to, some support in that way would be fantastic. But just being here is enough for us. Lions news. Malcolm Rodriguez, the massively underrated linebacker for the Lions, has welcomed a baby daughter with his wife Kennedy, who's called Mia Jane. Congratulations to Malcolm and Kennedy. The Lions and the Ford Motor Company have extended the naming rights deal for Ford Field through the 2036 season. It has been speculated that this is then the timeline for when the Lions will look to move to a new stadium in 11 years' time. Coyote Alshika, the interior offensive lineman, has re-signed with the team as of a few days ago. The Lions also proposed a change to some of the rules, including whether some of the defensive fouls should result in automatic first downs. It is under review, according to Bills head coach Sean McDermott, including some possible variations of which means they haven't thrown out altogether. Khalif Raymond, the wide receiver punt return, has had his contract changed, and I think restructured is maybe slightly misleading, since normally restructuring means that your deal has become longer or you've had void years added on, which reduces your cap hit in this year. He's done the opposite. He's had his cap hit for next year entirely removed in favour of wrapping up a little bit more in this upcoming season. So he's gone from a 500 grand cap hit this year to a 1 million cap hit this year, but has removed the 1 million cap hit in 2026. So it's saved the Lions $500,000 overall, but he's going to make $500,000 more for it and gets the chance to get a new deal in 12 months' time. Brad Holmes, in his interview today at the owners' meeting, has revealed that he believes Jameson Williams is going to have his 5th-year option picked up, which is interesting considering a lot of his first-rounders he's actually signed just before or just after that's been signed. So the fact that they are saying openly that they're going to exercise that option is perhaps a slight deviation from some of the other players, and we can talk about why in just a second. Holmes revealed that saving money for future extensions was the focus of free agency for the Lions this year, with Kirby Joseph mentioned specifically as an extension candidate. That was per Jeremy Reisman of Pride of Detroit. Also said that Zadarius Smith, the edge player brought in on trade last season, was released as the team couldn't afford him based on the current cap situation and what is coming down the road, but the team are still in discussions with his agent about bringing him back. Brad also confirms the team is only willing to spend a maximum of $16 million average annual value on a cornerback, which meant at $21 million average annual value, they were out of the Carlton Davis sweepstakes. They're also confident that Aiden Hutchinson is going to return to full health and is on the right timeline for his rehab. Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh has also basically said exactly the same thing. Brad's also said that Carl Allen is in the running for the quarterback 2 job, saying that Hendon wasn't ready for the playoffs and they've still got high hopes of him, but no one's going to be given a job. So if Hendon wants to be the number 2, then he has to win it. The Lions have also been awarded international marketing rights in Brazil. That is also the same as Dolphins, Patriots and Eagles, who have rights there. The team had already had rights in Canada, Germany, Austria and Switzerland. And then finally, the league owners have agreed to reduce the notice you have to give to flex Sunday game to Thursday night football. It's now 21 days instead of 28, where in the past 2 seasons only 1 game was flexed under that amount of delay. So they thought that it wasn't quite short enough to actually make it realistic. And the hope is, I guess, that it won't happen too much, but if they really need to, it's a bit more realistic now. Boys, there's a lot to go through there. I mean, maybe first, apart from just the congratulations to Rodrigo, is talking about the stadium for Detroit. I mean, it's been there since 2002, and I believe that their naming rights deal with Ford is the second longest continuous agreement in the NFL right now at 23 years. Of course, we've got another 11 years on the deal, so it's going to extend it out even further. Who knows, by the time they get there, it might be the longest tenured deal. And I mean, they own the bloody team, so it's probably going to continue for a long time yet. But what do you think about that? I mean, I know that it's got a great location down in downtown Detroit, but do you think that the moving is going to be on the horizon, boys? At some point.
Yeah, I believe so at some point, because at this point, Ford Field, as you mentioned, it's the second longest naming rights, which means it's also the second oldest stadium in the league. It's one of the last sort of barn style ones as well. It's going to, at some point, you do need to upgrade the facilities. There's only so much you can do to like expand seating, improve facilities, and that without it being just too much for the structure to handle. So this gives you sort of the team now and sort of nice 10-year window to sort of sort themselves out, work out what they're going to do. Because I agree, the prime, having been there pretty much this time last year, it's prime real estate, it's perfect location, it's next door to the Tiger Stadium as well. Obviously, they need to find a new solution, perhaps that keeps as much as that as possible, even if it is a kind of they play elsewhere for a couple of years while Ford Field's demolished and a new one's built. If it's a ground share where they alternate between Ann Arbor and East Lansing, just find some sort of solution that's the best possible for all parties. But yeah, continue it on for now. At least now you sort of got that timeline now in your head for everyone. They know 2036 is the sort of be all and end all now. If there's not a solution by then, kind of in a upper creek without a paddle, kind to say.
What do you think, Ant? Lions going to move in 11 years' time? I mean, if the Lions want to get a Super Bowl in Detroit, it feels like a new stadium has to be on the agenda.
I don't know. Like, this is a question to be asked in many years' time. At this moment, it's fine as what it is, and I don't really care. To be honest, like I say, this is going to be questioned in a decade's time at this point, but I don't think they'll move from there. I think it'll be a case of probably they'll rebuild, and if they do, they'll rebuild there and then move back, and they'll share somewhere for a little while because it's in a good place. There's no need for them to move really. They just need to upgrade it. So maybe they will, maybe they don't. I'm not really that bothered.
Coming back straight to you, Ant, what do you think about the Jameson Williams option? Do you think maybe it was the most obvious thing, but Brad kind of confirming what we thought was going to happen is interesting, given it's a deviation from what they've done with every other first round draft pick, pretty much.
Yeah, but at the same point, every other first round draft pick could probably stack together more than one good season of productivity by this point in their career. Like they've been consistently good. Like JMO just needs one more good year to prove that, everything else is behind him now. He's going to consistently be this guy year in, year out, and he's going to be one of the best at what he does. So having the fifth year just protects you. It just allows you that extra year just to see if, just to answer any lingering question marks you have about it for the long term. So I'm not surprised. I think it's the right thing to do, especially in this era where we've got a lot of big deals to dole out, and that it means that we can, put that one on the burner for a bit, spread it back out whenever we need to, and see what we have with him because. Worst case scenario, you got him for 2 more years. You can franchise tag him still. You can do it that way. If you've got all these massive contracts we just simply can't pay, someone's going to get hurt eventually. It always felt like he might be the guy, but it's just very sensible for this part. Keep him under. Don't let him go near free agency. If he has another 1,000-yard season plus this year, then you pay him. And you do your business, or you trade him for high value, whatever. So no, I'm not surprised in the slightest. I think it's the right thing to do rather than pay him now.
And then just having a look at the other pieces of news, Ash, the ones that I guess require some comment on, maybe Zadarius Smith, but we kind of assumed that was going to be the case, I think. Maybe the most notable one, and one to maybe pour the most scorn on a little bit, is the news that Kyle Allen is very much a QB2 competitor. I don't know what you make of this. Is it just a kick up the arse for Hendon?
I think it is. That's the way it was put across by Brad with the comments he made. Is obviously it's not gonna. You're not gonna begin to give a job. If you want to do it, win the job. But as I said when I put it in the Discord, when I saw the quote, I was like, "Well, he's just kicked that hornet's nest." Because as soon as we signed Carl Allen, there was a batch of fans that was like, "Oh yes, he's coming for QB2. The team doesn't believe in Hendon." And given what Brad said today, maybe that side of the fan base does have a bit of a leg to stand on there. Not being when they said they didn't feel it was ready for the playoffs was a slight indictment of him. Obviously, we do love Teddy to very good to QB2 for us when he had to come in and obviously led the scoring drive against the Commanders. But this is really like nut up or shut up time now for Hendon entering year 3. He was already an older prospects coming into the league as it was. We need to see kind of that thing from him now. He needs to take this job with 2 hands because the past couple of seasons he hasn't really been challenged. Rookie season we had Teddy here, so he was always going to be QB3 last year. His main competition was Nate Sudfeld and then Jake Fromm. Not exactly the glowing people to go up against. Same with Carl Allen, to be honest, but the thing that Carl's got over Hendon is he's been there, done that to fight a few teams. Panthers, he's done it in the Texans, played a couple of games for the Commanders off the top of my head. He's been there, done that. He's actually started games. Hendon hasn't yet, so now it's time for him to win that job because otherwise we might be looking at a developmental QB again this time next year, which ain't exactly fun, but that's the way it is. Not to bring up a certain baseball wielding GM who we used to know. Every time that a team has a chance to draft a QB they could believe in, they should do it. We've done it with Hendon. There are some signs, considering who we met with at the combine, that maybe there's a QB in this draft that maybe the team does like. It's not exactly great for Hendon.
That's what I was going to kind of come to in this, is I don't think this massively affects Hendon now, but I think considering the fact that they met with Jalen Milroe, I think it brings the idea of a quarterback into play. And Hendon's been in the system enough now where if you did take another swing at quarterback, that you can justify it. I don't like it, but you can justify it. There are people that say you want to take multiple swings, maybe every year. I think that's too often. Every 2 years, I think you can probably justify. And so we're kind of in that window again. And Milroe is he still 20? Is he 21? But he's young. He's kind of coming out. He's coming out early, and he's raw and needs time to sit. It seems like the league, or at least the draft media, is very down on him. If that's reflected in the league and he falls to where Hendon fell to, at like 102, for example, I'm not saying at 60, if he's there at the end of the 3rd, I think the Lions have to consider taking him. And, I mean, I was listening to the Athletic Football Show. I'm going to do quarterbacks next week. But they were saying, you draft him, and in 3 years' time, if he's not where you want him to be as a passer and you don't think he's ever going to get there, he's probably going to be like a top 10 running back. Because they said he's probably in the Lamar Jackson area as a rusher. I mean, that's pretty nuts. So to put that into context, everyone knows Lamar Jackson and what he did at college and where he got drafted at 32 to Baltimore. Lamar Jackson in college had 11 touchdowns of more than 10 yards rushing in his final year at college. Milroe has 12. So, it's not like he's getting these 1-yarders. They are proper rushing attack type stuff. So, anyway, I thought that was really interesting. And any comments on any of the other pieces of news we just talked about there that you want to give?
No, not really.
What about you, Ash, or should we move on?
No, not really as well, yeah.
Cool. Right, we're going to get into this offensive line group. We've got 10 to go through for you, primarily, and then we're going to get into some of the others in this class, but in a bit more of a shallow look. For myself, I'm going to be taking Wyatt Milum of West Virginia, Tate Ratledge of Georgia, and then the Oregon duo of Josh Conerly and Ajani Cornelius. Ant is taking Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson out of Florida, Aireontae Ersery out of Minnesota, and Jackson Slater from Sac State. And then Ash is looking at Charles Grant from William & Mary, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, and Jonah. Savaiinaea. I can't say it. Do you know how to say it, Ash?
So it's Jonah Savaiinaea, the
Savaiinaea.
Arizona offensive lineman.
Thank you. So since I have 4, and I only have 4 because, well, the 2 Oregon guys played in the same game, so it's kind of easy for me to scout. I'm going to go first, and I think, in difference with how we've done stuff in the past, I think I'm going to build up to my best guy. So I'm going to go from worst to best, and unfortunately that kind of reveals where I'm going to think about this guy. Sorry, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to start with Ajani Cornelius from Oregon. Let me bring up his stats because I've been talking and not bringing up his stats. Ajani Cornelius. So he is a red shirt senior. Actually, I need to make sure it's on YouTube and Twitch as well. So give me a second. Turn that on. Okay. Oh, I've managed to put 2 commas in there. Never mind. Ajani Cornelius, redshirt senior from Oregon, number 65. He hasn't done his testing. I can't remember whether that's because he's injured or just didn't want to, but he has done some measurements. He's done some of the explosive drills and he's done the height and weight measurements. So he can't be too injured if he's doing the explosivity measurements. But he is 6'4.5", 310 pounds. So good passable size at tackle, good size without being too heavy. Got 33.5-inch arms, so very much passes that bar in terms of, you know, having long enough arms to play the position. You know, you'd like him maybe to be 34, but 33 and less is kind of frowned upon. At 33.5, he's right in that window of being okay. PFF grade for last year was 74.2 with a 73.8 run block, 72.4 pass blocking grade. Despite being in the mid-70s, he gave up the most pressure of his career this year with 29 pressures and 3 sacks allowed. He's a 2-year starter at Oregon. He then played before that for 3 years, starting at Rhode Island, where he finished his Rhode Island career with a 90.1 grade. So took the step up, which is a really positive thing. In his first year at Oregon, he didn't give up a sack and only 11 pressures in Oregon's great run in the last of the Pac-12, but couldn't continue that in this most recent season, although his grade didn't really fall. So the kind of down-to-down stuff was actually, you know, better, but the giving up of pressures was significantly worse, which is not ideal. I had a look specifically at, you know, some bits and pieces of him, but the UCLA game in week 5, which I think was one of his better games. It was his best game of the season. So I thought I would get some rose-tinted glasses look at him, especially when considering his average is a 74.2. You know, this is where I'm going to get like a really nice look at him compared to some of the poorer games that he had. He gave up 1 pressure in this game, apparently. But just some observations of him. Got like a kind of prototypical tackle build, quite thick, quite bottom heavy, which, you know, is probably going to be quite good for your anchor. But he doesn't play with particularly good balance. He always seems to be slightly on his toes, and that doesn't help when it comes to engaging his anchor. So despite, you know, kind of having the right sort of body type and being, you know, relatively heavy and tall, he plays okay in terms of his leverage. He's not particularly upright, but on the initial punch, he kind of doesn't eat it particularly well. So, you know, when he's going up against some better linemen, and UCLA had some good linemen, but not fantastic linemen this year, he did find that he was kind of giving up more than a yard most of the time. He was absorbing a hit at least, and sometimes 2 or 3, and kind of being walked back into the quarterback, which is not ideal. And that was fairly consistent. He struggled with keeping that anchor together and in keeping him away. He showed a good ability to kind of recover from that, but that seemed like it was a learned thing, and it didn't look like it would be something that would pass to the pros particularly well when you're going up against better, longer, faster defenders. So I do have my worries that you can't live that way in the NFL, to be honest, and you kind of need to get a bit more stout. I think part of that is that his stance and the way that he kind of explodes into the rep is just not quite right, that he is just not balanced, and he's not... The technique isn't there. He's also not landing his own punch. He's trying to wait to absorb the contact, and he's just not there. He requires, quite a lot of coaching, to be quite honest. When he tries to have his own punch and get that in first, it's often timed badly. In fact, it can unbalance him even more, which is really not ideal. He's got good grip strength. When he does have the lineman in his grasp, he doesn't tend to let them go, which is a good thing to see. But, there's several examples on tape of him overbalancing and losing to pass rush moves, swims, rips. He just kind of is not moved easily, but, it's something which definitely needs to improve. His arms seem to buckle under pressure, even when he kind of does engage well. In run or pass blocking, he does kind of have his arms broken a little bit and then can't recover that. And that actually unbalances him more as well. His lateral agility too just seems to be something which he struggles with. So he's got a good, strong kick out of his stance in pass blocking and kind of establishes that pocket. But what he does with that when his balance isn't great and his lateral agility isn't particularly good is he's often finding edge rushers can dart inside of him between him and the guard, and he can't react because all his momentum is going outside, and then he can't react back in. So whether it's that maybe he kicks out a little bit less, and so he's not quite so far away that he can't really establish that, but then will he lose on the outside? I don't know. Or whether there's something he can do to kind of react quicker to what he's facing, I'm not sure, but I couldn't help but feel disappointed because some of the reps were good, but, he's facing line. This was his best game. And I'm coming up with this stuff, 85 grade a game, and he didn't look good. In the run blocking, there were some good reps, especially where he kept the legs driving through that. He did have some kind of mauler reps where he kind of got underneath someone and managed to drive them a long way back. So that was really positive to see. I enjoyed that. Overall, as a kind of summary for him, I think he's a high ceiling, low floor guy because he is athletic. Despite the lack of agility, I do think he could be quick. It's just not in that side-to-side area. I think it's more vertical. So you could do some stuff with him in screen game. I think you can probably have a good run-blocking offensive tackle in him if you really wanted to, and you could train him in that way. But pass blocking, I do have the fear that he doesn't maybe have the natural gifts or instincts that you'd like, and that he'd need several years under a really good coach before you could get a starter out of him. His punch is inconsistent and fairly ineffective, and it's poorly timed when he does try it. It's swiped away quite easily. His balance is forward, which means he loses quickly. When he receives a punch of his own or a bull rush, he loses several feet, maybe a yard. His lack of foot speed means he can't react quickly enough. He needs coaching. He needs to be more balanced. It's not a total loss. There is something there. Give him to someone who knows what he's doing and let him sit for a couple of years and see what you've got afterwards. Maybe you can consider kicking him inside, but asking him to learn an entirely new position is not great either, but at least it would kind of minimize the fact that his lateral agility isn't particularly good. So, and the run blocking's okay. He's got a stout frame. Maybe you could pile some more pounds on him, but when you're inconsistent with your punch, it doesn't feel like that's the right way to go, even if it might mitigate some of the problems. It might exacerbate other problems that he has. So while you could consider moving him inside, I think he's a developmental tackle. Because of the physical traits he has, which, they're not nothing, I'm putting him in at a kind of high 5th round pick, somewhere in that mid day 3 range. He's not a no-hope prospect by any means. I know I sound like I'm really down on him, but I was more disappointed, especially when it was meant to be his best game of the year. Boys, that's me on Ajani Cornelius. Have you seen him at all? I mean, Oregon's obviously a well-watched team, so the right tackle there. Did you see any of him at all?
Probably seen bits of him, just can't remember too much, which probably fits in what you're saying, that he's not exactly an outstanding tackle, which you kind of need like something to hang your hat off. So obviously, Penne's same college, obviously, years ago when we drafted him, his just sheer athleticism, his size of a tackle. So Decker, the fact that he was so fundamentally sound in pass pro technique-wise coming from Ohio State. Hell, even some like the lower sort of level ones. So Jordan Mailata, the fact that he's a project tackle, but the fact he had the grit and determination to work his way up, and you knew he would persevere and hard work. Cornelius doesn't really have a superpower to hang his hat on. So while he probably will get drafted, and someone will probably stick him on their roster. It'll probably be as like a backup guy with some swing potential, a special team stuff, rather than hoping he's ever going to be a starter. So that probably explains why when I did watch Oregon, my eyes kind of skated over him to other players just because he's in the background, which sometimes for offensive linemen isn't the worst thing. Like sometimes it's better to be unnoticed as an offensive lineman rather than, give up 17 million sacks in one game kind of thing. Obviously that's hyperbole, but
just a bit of breaking news that John Kaminsky has retired from football for medical reasons. That's really sad. All the best to Kamish. He came in at a time where we really needed a damn good player to outperform his contract, and he absolutely did that. So thank you to Kamish and wishing you all well, mate, in your retirement. And have you seen Cornelius at all?
Yeah, I've seen quite a lot of this Oregon team, and it's interesting for a guy like him. I look at when you rate these guys, when you scout them, you got to look at the situation that they've been in and what they've gone through, etc. And for him, obviously, he's plied his trade at the FCS level for a few years, got the starting ability there, but his ability to then come up to the Power 5 and seamlessly transition into it in his first year is impressive given the level of the step up of opposition you have. And he looked really damn good last year. A great pickup from them, and I think there's a lot to like about him. But you come up to the Power 5 last year, and then you have to deal with a conference change as well in your very first year. You go from playing all these West Coast orientated teams to then you're coming across, to the Big Ten, where you've got these big, burly, bruising teams with very good defensive lines. You think your Penn State, your Ohio State, your Michigans. It's completely different to what you've played in the first year, and it doesn't help that you've got 4 different right guards who've played for that team this year. You've got constantly a man switching in beside you who's different. You're rotating out. It's not good for a tackle when he's constantly, his level of opposition's going up or changing. He's got a rolling wheel of men next to him. It's very difficult to be able to maintain your own levels, and you're not exactly put in a position to succeed either. And I think given all that you've taken in, the amount of starting experience you have, you've got 4 years at the right tackle position, you've obviously got the stuff you need, because Oregon have looked incredibly good. I mean, especially at the tackle positions. That interior is not the best interior in the world. So again, you're sort of stuck on an island that has to do a lot, and you've been going up against the likes of Abdul Carter and that this year, who have given you issues. But I think given the circumstances, played very well. There's certainly the experience that you require there at multiple levels. The ability to be able to jump up experience levels and still look great bodes well for coming into the NFL. And a lot of the players who do surpass expectations have taken that route there. So I agree, he's going to be a development project, absolutely, for sure. But, I think he's going to be a tackle at the next level. Maybe you can put the versatility in there, but you don't want to change him again. Not after every single year, something big in his life is changing. You just want to let him settle, train him up right, and eventually, he'll be one of those class where you could get a good tackle out of him at the next level. You can get good depth at the next level. Hell, you may even get a starter there as well. Like, he's dominant when it comes to his pass pro. He's really good. It's just about adapting. It's about if you've got the technique and that. That'll be ultimately what caps him, but he's definitely earned the go. The way he's come up, the levels he's adapted to, the change he's had to deal with, the change on the line he's had to deal with, I think that mitigates him enough to give him a chance at the next level.
All right, that was Ajani Cornelius, and we are going to move on to someone. Let's move on to Ant first. So, Ant,
you'll leave me till last.
All right, we'll go on to Ash then. Ash, who's your first guy?
Since you went for your lowest rated guy, I'll go for mine as well, which is Charles Grant, the offensive lineman from William and Mary. Of course, if that college rings a bell, we've gone to that well a couple of times the past couple of years with Nate Lynn last year as a UDFA, and then a couple of years before, Colby Sawstill, their right tackle who we took, and we've been trying to develop for a while, and it might be a similar story here with Grant. So Grant is their left tackle. He is 6'4", 311 pounds, and he's a senior. He spent all 5 years of his career at William and Mary. He did most of his testing, so we have RAS scores for him. At tackle, he's a 5.76 with great speed, good explosion, okay size and poor agility. But if you move him inside to guard, which is where most draft nicks project him, he goes up to a 7.45 with great speed, good explosion and size, and okay agility. And his arms are 34 and three-quarters inches long, which is obviously above that tackle threshold. This year from PFF, he got a 91.2 overall offensive grade, 88.1 pass blocking, 90.4 run blocking, and 55 receiving. He played 767 snaps, 372 of these were pass blocking, 392 in run blocking, and 3 in receiving. He played 14 snaps in line, 2 in the slot, and then the other 751 were as the left tackle. In that position, he gave up 9 pressures this year, so 2 sacks, 1 QB hit, and 6 hurries, while conceding 7 penalties. I watched his game this year against Coastal Carolina because that was the only one against FBS opposition. Might as well see what he does against the best opposition, even though obviously Coastal Cal is G5, so again, not the best compared to some of the other ones I watched, which were Power 5, but still good indicator for how he'll adjust to the pros perhaps. In that game, he got a 68.2 offensive grade, 69.8 pass block, 65.7 run blocking. He played 56 snaps, 34 pass blocking, 22 in run blocking. He didn't give up a pressure, but he did concede a penalty. And so run blocking wise, he's got good enough mobility to be able to pull on a power play. So he took him from left tackle, pulled him across the formation to sort of be a moving blocker on a run play. And he did it well enough. He managed to block off his guy. The back got a couple of yards, but that was about it. But his real strength is in the sort of zone blocking plays. So there's quite a few where he was able to just get off the snap, move across, find his gap, and just block his way there, which really shows on his lateral agility. He's got very good quickness in doing that, sort of going left to right, while north to south he does have some issues, especially since when he's getting to that second level, he does have a few issues sort of slowing his feet down. So sometimes when he gets to second level, defenders will know that and almost use his momentum against him to sort of shove him out the way. And because he hasn't slowed himself down, he just carries on past and they're able to then blow up the running back. And in pass blocking, he's weakest when the rusher attacks either the corner or the inside shoulder. So obviously, that's one of the things I've really learned about this week in preparation is the 4 points of attack. So obviously you've got the corner where they bend around the edge, outside shoulder, inside shoulder, and then power, which is through the chest. He's good defending his outside shoulder or through his chest, but unfortunately if the rusher goes either side of him, attacks that inside shoulder, which is Penne's weakness particularly, or they try and bend around the edge, he does have some issues dealing with that. And if they do go for his chest, sometimes more powerful rushers will be able to just target his chest because his hands are very low for his stance, which allows his chest to be open for some of those power ball rushes. But he is light and powerful in his lower half, which allows him to, if they do get their hands on him, he is able to adjust his feet and kind of rotate to continue to protect the QB and keep the integrity of the pocket. And some stuff that probably make him a more of a sort of fit for us. Former wrestler, you know how much our team loves the former wrestlers. They know how to use leverage, how to manipulate people. Something you do see on his tape, as I said, just with the power in the lower half, he's able to manipulate people if they get their hands on him. That's that wrestling background coming in. He does have experience playing that 6 offensive lineman role. So as I said, he has played 14 snaps this past season in line as that sort of extra offensive tackle. And to be honest, it was very hard to evaluate him because the QB play, especially in that game, was just off. The amount of times the QB would just overthrow the receiver or just scramble out of nowhere, and it would just lead to sacks. On the other offensive lineman, obviously per PFF, but doesn't really help him. So my comparison for him and this is going to be a major throwback for people. Joe Dahl, our former left guard, played for Dahl played left tackle in his final 2 seasons at Wazoo. very similar build to Grant. So Doll 6'4", 310 pounds. And for me, roughly in the same kind of draft range. So Doll was taken 151st in 2016 by us. I project Grant in the same kind of area and to do the same move inside from left tackle to left guard. I know he's got the arms, so maybe you do try him at tackle, see if you've got something there. But I do project him just because of the way he's, as I said, the way he gets attacked either side of him, sort of moving him sideways. Then suddenly he's got a left tackle to protect his outside shoulder. He doesn't have to worry about the corner, and then he's got a centre on his inside shoulder to kind of help him, especially with double teams. So our fit for us would be as a backup left guard initially, who with some development could grow into a starter by the end of his rookie contract. So he is the 8th overall offensive lineman and the 97th overall prospect on mock draft database, which puts him as a late third rounder. Unfortunately, I'd have him a bit lower, roughly a round lower than this, just because the level of competition. And obviously, he's played Coastal Cal. He has played a couple of G5 teams, but for the most part, the teams he's played have been FCS, and that's where he's had his best games. So I did watch one of his worst games because it was this or either 2 FCS ones. I think one of them was Towson where he got a nearly 90 graded. Did consider that, just didn't have time, unfortunately, because you just can't. And what we've seen with Colby, where he had great seasons with William Mary, he struggled in the transition. So you've got to have that in the back of your mind. Plus, he does have a bit of a lack of upside because of his age. He's obviously a 5th-year senior, and he does have a flaw to his athleticism. It does limit his upside. So for me, be best served moving inside, particularly in a zone running scheme, more offering some 6 offensive line versatility due to his experience there. But for me, looking at it through Lions tinted glasses, because of his lack of experience on special teams in particular, so he's only played 1 snap there in the past 2 years, and the number of developmental players we're already carrying on the offensive line depth chart. So Sorsdal, Manu, Mahogany to an extent. Obviously, he's played 2 games. He looked good, but can he continue that on? We've just re-signed Arasika, who is another developmental guy moving inside from tackle a couple of years ago. I would not expect us to consider him until 130 at the earliest. And even then, I won't be surprised if we pass on him if he's on the board.
I've got to say, I haven't seen any of him at all. And have you seen any of Charles Grant and William and Mary this cycle?
No, very, very limited. I don't watch too much FCS football, so.
All right, makes sense. In that case, Ant, are you ready for your first guy?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Who is it?
Right, so I'm gonna start off with Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson. So he is the tackle out of the Florida Gators. So 6'7", 322 pounds, just completed his senior year. Spent his first 4 years with the San Diego State Aztecs in the Mountain West, and then transferred last year to Florida. Just spent the 1 year with the Gators. So his snap count in college, 1,213 snaps at left tackle, 1,878 snaps at right tackle. Florida used him as a right tackle this year, but he's got just over 3,000 reps in college altogether. This is a guy who is very experienced. Started off as the right tackle for San Diego State in 21, moved to the blind side in 22 and 23. Then he had to move back out to right because of various injuries they had on the team. And then, say, Florida snapped him up this year, and he's had a damn good year. So over his career, he's given up 7 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, 45 hurries on 1,524 pass pro snaps, but he gave up just 1 sack and 11 pressures this year in his only year at Florida in the SEC. And bearing in mind, this was the team that gave up nearly 40 sacks on Graham Mertz last year and nearly got him killed. This line's been a lot better this year, and he's widely regarded as one of the most underrated players on this team. He's had a really good off-season circuit as well. So as I say, 6'7", 322, chose to watch the film on him, and because I've just finished my video on Walter Nolan, I thought, well, let's watch some more Old Miss D-line video because it is quite fun. So them playing against Old Miss this year, this is a hell of an assignment because, again, Nolan, Pegues on the middle, Lumen, Malin, Ivy on the outside. and he shows a lot of good traits to go up to the next level. First up, his measurements scream that he can be a tackle at the next level. He's got all the experience in the world that you need. He's been forged in the Mountain West. You have to be a tough son of a bitch to play in that conference. You can see that in the style that he plays, especially when it comes to the run game and just how unforgiving he is with it. But then he's had to come up against some of the best in the country in the SEC this year, and specifically in this game, he got matched up against Princely Malin quite a lot, and there were just some great plays in here which show you what he's all about. So Florida's first touchdown in this game, he's lined up against Malin on the line of scrimmage, and deep drop from him. Malin tries to come at him with the power rush. His punch, Crenshaw-Dickson's, is huge, and if he hits you with it, you'll lose all the power out your rush. You see him, both hands, hits under Princely's pads. He stops him in his tracks, and for an edge rusher who, he has got a lot of his sacks over the years through the power rush, through overwhelming guys, he just completely stops him dead. Lagway's able to throw in his direction, under no pressure at all. Great pass to the back of the end zone, and it just shows his, when he gets his hands on you, he can deal with these bull rushing, power type guys on the edge with very little, with very little problems for him whatsoever. But he's not just some big lump at 6'7", 322 who can't do anything. He is very athletic. And again, San Diego, they run a very run-heavy offense there, but it's not just through the tackle stuff. You've got to be able to get to the perimeter, do your perimeter blocking. So for the second touchdown in this one, he has to go out to the edge to block the corner, but to show you just how quick he can get out there, Malin has a free rush at DJ Lagway. He has to basically let him go through unblocked so that he can go make his block on the outside. The ball is out from Lagway so quickly. The running back gets it on the perimeter. 2 blocks need to be made. The first one from Crenshaw-Dickson, he's out there. He absolutely banjaxes the corner down into the ground. And he has to get out there damn quick. And if he's a split second late, this thing gets blown up completely. But on time, powerful, just clears the running lane for the running back. The right guards also come out at this point. He absolutely takes down the safety. The running back goes 30 yards, doesn't even get touched before he gets in the end zone. It's just really good play, and it just goes to show the versatility that he has. And he does his best work, as I say, when it comes to the run game. Coming up to the second level, he is so good at locating his targets when it comes up. If he's not got a specific guy in the next level, you see him running around looking for work. He's athletic enough, he's agile enough to go, and the amount of times he finds work to do, work that proves beneficial for the team, gets those extra few yards, is really good. It really stands out about him. He is quick and reactive when it comes to his combo blocking. Really good when it comes to the combo blocks, the read and react blocks where he's got to pick up the late blitzers. He's able to set very quickly. It's just so impressive to see, and what he's built on there. Now, there are issues with him, and you see it in this one again. When you're up against a very talented defensive line like this, your flaws will get exposed. So at 6'7", obviously, the idea about speed rushes comes into the bag. So, like I said, he's dealt well with Malin and the power stuff. There are occasions when the speed rushers will get to him a little bit. Now, what he does, he sets himself wide. He's got this great thing. He can push them really far out wide. So even if a speed rusher beats him, they have to take a long way around to get to the quarterback. Now, that's fine at the collegiate level. That won't fly in the NFL. You've got to be more consistent with your blocks, especially with speed guys. You've got to keep your hands on them longer. And again, at someone at his size, it's something you've got to work on. It's all about the footwork, getting it right. There's not anything badly wrong with the footwork. I think it's just making the most of it, taking better angles, getting yourself sorted. And you see a couple of times in this as well, it's not just the speed rushers, it's the guys who are very technically good. Like Walter Nolan gets him a couple of times, but Walter Nolan's hands are stupidly quick when he gets off the line of scrimmage quick, the explosive get off. His hands are all over the place, and before you know it, he's got them under your pads and you're done for. That's kind of a similar theme to this. There's 2 plays where he just can't deal with the speed of his hands, and he gets in a little bit of a tiff about it. So this is why he's sort of in this day 3 territory at the moment, where if you want to succeed in the NFL, you've got to be able to deal with the speed stuff as well as everything else. But he does have the experience. From what I see of him, he's got the arsenal, he's got the weapons he needs. He just needs someone to be able to refine it for him. And again, he's another highly experienced starter. I see a very good level swing tackle in him here. You can do it on both sides. You can use him as a sixth lineman. Hell, if you want to run heavy packages, you bring him in and do that specifically. He could do that right off the bat, I reckon, because he uses his frame well, and there's not a lot of wasted movement. As I say, the ability to get to the second level, open up rushing lanes, block off all the guys he needs to. These quick athletic linebackers and that, he's on them in a flash. I really like the work he does. I think he's had a terrific season for Florida in a position they've really struggled against some of the best competition in the country. So I think there's potentially a very good prospect in here that just needs polishing off and just needs a little bit of technique work when it comes to dealing with speed rushes at the next level. But outside of that, I was really impressed what I saw with him because, what I saw Ole Miss do to LSU, who were a lot better of an offensive line with a lot better prospects there. He absolutely ruined them. The four of them absolutely ruined them. Here, he stood up very good, very strong against a very good defense. I like what I see with Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson. And like I says with Grant, maybe do we need another development project on the line? No. But do we have a genuine swing prospect on this line? No. So there is a hole to be made there for him if someone else wants to get kicked out the door. So I wouldn't be averse to seeing us go for him at some point. But big fan of Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson. And I think he's got exactly what it needs to succeed at the next level. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he does, regardless of where he goes.
Have you seen any of him at all, given that, you have such an affinity for Florida?
Yeah, I've seen one game for him, and it's week 14 against a certain team. And he did pretty well against that team. 74.1 grade. I'm just looking it up. But it was the pass blocking that hurt him. He did give up a sack and 2 hurries on that and did concede a penalty. But yet he has solidified that line, like as Ant alluded to earlier. They haven't exactly been strong on there. They've had players come out who's been good. So Torrance, for instance, on the Bills. But they haven't had a really good offensive line. And yeah, he did really solidify the right-hand side for them. It's part of the reason why Lagway looks so good and is getting sort of plaudits he does, because he didn't have to worry about rushers coming into his face when he's trying to throw the ball. So yeah, I can see the development upside there. But yeah, it would start as sort of kicking Dan Skipper out the door, him starting that way, and then over time build it up. And then if and when we do move on from Decker, and if some people want to move Saul over, then he could slide in at right tackle there. But it's definitely another shot at the dartboard, and I'm for that on day 3, because at that point, that's what you're doing. You're looking for guys who can hopefully either provide you a nice floor on special teams or develop into something potentially in the future.
I have seen none of him, so I'm not going to pass any comment whatsoever. Any other comments you guys want to make before we move on to the next guy? All right, well, we'll move on to my next guy then. And that is PFF's number 1 ranked pass blocker in this class. That is Wyatt Milum from West Virginia, who I know is quite well liked in our Discord. So Wyatt Milum's a senior at West Virginia. He's 6'6" and 4/10 of an inch. No, 6 foot 6.5. 313 pounds. Arm length is just a shade over 32 inches. So short-armed prospect, just above 32 inches, which is really the kind of cut-off point where you really should consider going inside. For all the talk about arm length not mattering, that debate was about whether there should be above or below 34. He is 32 1/8. It's now, I think, common kind of school of thought that all the way down to 33 is fine, and below that is iffy territory. So you've got that to consider to have out the gate. RAS score overall is an 8.01. He had a 30-inch vert and a 9-foot broad. So explosive guy, 40-yard dash, who cares? 10-yard split of 1.83, so it's kind of middle of the pack in terms of his short area speed. His shuttle and 3-cone were both very good, so 4.69 in the shuttle, 7.59 in the 3-cone, especially that 3-cone is very, very good for someone of his size. So this is a pretty athletic guy. You know, you're not going to find someone who is so good, apparently, per PFF at pass blocking, being quite this athletic, maybe where he's going to be available in this NFL draft. I haven't looked actually at NFL mock draft database, but he was regarded as one of the top tackles in this cycle initially. He's kind of fallen down the draft board a little bit. He was sort of in that mid-first round territory. Now you're looking at him at sort of mid-second, potentially, I think, is where the consensus has him at the moment. This season, he's played his entire college career at West Virginia as a starter. He played right tackle in 2021 and then has played left tackle since in 22 through 24. He hasn't given up a sack since 2021. He gave up three sacks in his first year at right tackle, but none since moving over to left tackle. He's not even given up a quarterback hit, in the last 2 years. Only gave up 6 pressures in this most recent season and 9 in 2023. So this is a guy who, frankly, gets shit done. Like, there's absolutely no nonsense from Wyatt Milum. Also, in the 2024 consensus All-American team, or voted in All-American. So, you know, being recognised by the people who do that voting is obviously a very prestigious award. So, I watched his game against Penn State, which was in week 1, and then against Iowa State in week 7. The game against Penn State was the worst game of the year for him. The game against Iowa State was one of his best games of the year. So I got a good spread about what he's all about. So in week 1, it seemed to lack a little bit of urgency sometimes out of his stance, but it's exceptionally aggressive and really likes to bury people. With his kind of ability to get upfield, even though he's not like the most athletic guy in the world, he's explosive and 3-cone's very good. So like the horizontal stuff is pretty nice. So getting up to the second level is something that West Virginia tries to do with him a lot. He consistently over-pursued those blocks, and maybe that's just a coaching point, but like he was getting to the point where he needed to be, and then he kind of went a half step beyond that and then tried to block, and he just kind of missed fencing off some guys when it was trying to create rushing lanes. Seems to be slow off the ball. Sometimes the ball will be snapped and he'll be a little bit behind where he should be. I don't know whether he's trying to really avoid false start penalties, but I think he's going to concede a lot at the NFL level with that against guys who time the snap really well and have some first step quickness. You know, some guys maybe he's not seen at the NFL level before. So, you know, if you go up against Hutch, for example, or someone like Danielle Hunter, or, you know, anyone like that, I think that they're going to be really interesting people to see him go up against. His angles generally in pass blocking don't feel optimal. They are good enough at the college level, and that's the reason why there are so few pressures on his film. But it feels like he's doing the job well enough against lower level opposition. For me, you know, he came up against in his college career, I mean, Iowa State, no slouches, Penn State, no slouches, but they were very much the best teams he faced all year. The other teams he faced are not mugs either. Like, you've got Texas Tech on there, UCF, Baylor, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Pittsburgh, Albany. Like, with the exception of some of the FCS team on there, they're all good teams, but they're also not the absolute creme de la creme, and they are absolutely not NFL caliber players necessarily that he's going up against week in, week out. So I do think it would be interesting to see what happens with that. Timing his punch is something that's inconsistent. It's good to the majority of the time, which is great to see, but he does mistime it fairly regularly as well, so that's just something which needs a little bit more consistency. There's a false step sometimes in both his pass blocking and run blocking, which can sometimes leave him needing a bit more time to get where he wants to get to. And I don't know whether it's a false step, which is then maybe meaning that he tries to catch up too quickly, and that's why he's overrunning where he needs to be if he's trying to block downfield. But also in pass blocking, I feel like that could leave him unbalanced, and he needs to kind of coach that out of himself a little bit. Against Penn State, just to say, he was going up against Abdul Carter for quite a bit of it, so you have to bear that in mind, because he's the best player in the draft, maybe. So, there's that to consider. About 40% of the time he was going up against Carter, so it wasn't... But Penn State also have a good edge rusher on the other side, I believe. So, he ended up only playing the first half of that game, and then he went out because he had full body cramps, which the coach revealed was really not good. So the fact that this was his worst game of the year, and that some of the stuff I'm talking about needs to be looked through that lens, he may not have been feeling well through this game, and he actually had a better season throughout after this game. He's clearly quick enough to be a pulling lineman. He's got enough athleticism, especially that stuff with the shuttle and the 3-cone. You can get him out pulling from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. Also, upside of him playing right tackle to start his career and left tackle is he could probably be a swing tackle for some teams, so I think that could be really good. Handled stunts well. Penn State liked to bring their inside guys out and outside guys in, and he was able to pass guys off really, really nicely, so that was good. Against Iowa State, his... he seemed to be playing high quite a lot, and I'd love to see him get a little bit lower in his stance. I think that he could give up something if people could get underneath him. And at 6 foot, 6.5, he's pretty tall as it is, so it's going to be really key for him to keep a nice low center of gravity. He was much better in this game in terms of the angles that he was taking, squaring off blocks, especially being perpendicular to the rushing lanes. That was much better in this one. Versus the bull rush, he has a really good anchor generally. So even though he seemed to play a little bit high, he was still able to sit down on some of the rushes that were against him. His hand placement was actually really, really good. Again, his first step in pass pro isn't that explosive. I mean, even compared to Ajani Cornelius, it wasn't great as a first step. So I do worry again about those first step, very quick edge rushes that they might just have a step on him. He committed a terrible holding penalty where a person tried to do a spin move and he just hugged him. It was like, you're not going to move. Which was quite interesting. Really nice, strong hands. When he locks someone up, they're not getting away from him. That was really, really nice to see. He has a really interesting habit, and I don't know whether this is coaching. I would like to think that it is. Instead of sitting back in the pocket, in pass pro, not play action, he would sometimes advance on edge defenders, leave the pocket and block them upfield. Like, not beyond the line of scrimmage, but he would go and meet a player. And I think there's a really good reason why teams don't do that. You want to create a pocket because you're also creating an obstacle for like defensive tackles can't run through that gap. And he's vacating that area. And I think it is actually leading to more one-on-one wins for him because defenders aren't expecting that. And actually, if you do that, they kind of key into the fact that it might be a run and they play accordingly. So it is kind of interesting as a misdirection. If you go up against a really good interior defensive line player who decides they're going to try and penetrate upfield, that's going to get exploited. So I hope that's West Virginia telling him to do that and not him doing it off his own back. That's kind of all the points from those two games. So just in summary, good height and weight. Arm length is going to lead to some people saying he should go inside. And there's no two ways about that. Good, not great explosiveness. The agility is good. So, the fact that he can move sideways, especially with the pulling stuff, is nice. But it also means that potentially he can hang against edge rushes in space because he's kind of got that ability to move side to side. He's not the fastest player in the world, but he's got enough. His angles can use a little bit of improvement, but like I say, later on in the year, he seemed to kind of fix that, so that's nice. False step was shown in both games, so he needs to eliminate that from his game because I just don't think his balance is quite as polished as it could be. Can play a little upright, and as a 6'6.5" guy, and I mean, this is a problem with the entire draft class, I think, at offensive line. He needs to play a little bit lower so he's not giving up his chest. Good anchor against bull rushes. He's not going to be beaten easily going straight through him. I mean, that kind of makes sense when you see who you're facing as a player here. All in all, you know, he handles pass rush moves well. He handles stunts well. So I'm bullish on what he could be at the next level. There's enough to be excited about him. I do think he could benefit from sitting a year and kind of learning under the tutelage of a seasoned veteran on the way out, and maybe kind of taking over from that person later into his first year, or maybe at the start of his second season. I don't think there's quite enough there for me to be comfortable with the projection of him starting day one. I think some teams will be interested in him at the back end of the first. Because of how I see him, I don't like that. And because of his short arms, I would consider kicking him aside. And I do think I think he will be okay at tackle. I think he might be a better guard. Do you do that? He has to learn that position if you make him do that, and that might hurt his projection. So even if he might be a better guard, are you willing to sacrifice maybe 2 years of his rookie career in order to do that? I think I'd be tempted to give him a go at tackle to begin with, just to see what he's got, because there's enough there to like that it makes sense. Given everything that I've said, I think that I've kind of got a mid-2 on him. I've given him a 74 grade out of 100 on our grading scale, which puts him just under the middle of round 2. So expect to see him go in that sort of 49 to 60 sort of range. So if he's available with the Lions' second round pick at 60, he's someone that I would actually really like to see. There's enough upside here to really make it make sense. And I think that sort of projection is in line with where his consensus grade is. Boys, I know, and I think you're quite a fan of Wyatt Milum, so maybe I should turn to you first. I don't know how fair you think that is, but I think that you quite like him, right?
Yes. Wyatt Milum's the best left tackle in this draft. Period. You will not see someone who has better footwork than him. You will not see someone who is more aggressive than him. You will not see someone who has a massively high ceiling at the next level. I love what he's all about. His biggest problem is he's got to tone down the aggression a little bit. That happens when you get to the NFL. They weed that out of you. You like to be aggressive in college. You like to go fight your fights. No one's complete when they come out of college, but I've watched him for 3 years now, ever since he started there. And in terms, he just dominates. That's what he likes to do. He goes out there. He can deal with any type of edge rusher he comes up against. He can drop into stance quickly. The speed rushers struggle to get to him. The power rushers certainly don't get past him. And for me, he's everything you want in a guy at the next level. Fuck the short arm stuff. I'm tired of this. Just, chuck him inside, Screw it, it's lazy. And we'll stand up against this. The same with Will Campbell as well. These guys are technically well refined. They're aggressive at what they do. They're good at what they do, and they will succeed because of their technique at the next level. He is, for me, he's going to be great. And whoever gets him, if you're going to let him fall down into the second, fine. But for me, there's not many obvious flaws with his game. I've watched him 3 years in a row. He's not given up a sack in that backyard brawl. He's come up against Kalijah Kancey, Savaiinaea, Dennis, the best Pittsburgh's had to offer. And that's in games where these lines have really struggled. And he comes to the fore every time he needs to. He's going to be a franchise player for somebody eventually. And the lazy takes about his arm size, I just can't be doing with it for me. He's a great prospect. I love what he's all about. You've just got to temper that aggression and just fine-tune it a little bit. But at the next level, he's going to be a road grader. You know, you need someone who gets up to the second level quick, going to clear a path out for your running back. He's going to be that guy. And you want someone who can deal with the bigger, chunkier edges they seem to like going with in the NFL now. He'll be that guy as well. I think he's going to be great. I really like him. And yeah, a few little issues with him, but no college prospect is perfect. He will get much better at the next level. He's going to continue to carry on getting better. And whoever takes a plump at him at tackle is going to be very much glad that they made that decision.
Ash, what about you?
I don't agree. So admittedly, I've only seen the Penn State game, but for me, it's not just the arm length that people are saying they're going to move him inside. It's because, as you mentioned, Matt, the first step sometimes can just be a bit too slow. So when you're going up against the better edge rushers, and obviously Abdul Carter's one in Penn State, but when you're going up against in our division, you've got some of the guys who can, like Montez Sweat, quick first step, going up against Hutch every day in practice will probably help a bit, but sometimes he can just give up ground to the speed rush, which is maybe why he has that sort of play action sort of stance sometimes in pass pro, where he goes to meet the edge rusher, because he knows if he gives them that step and if he isn't square to them, if he doesn't dictate the terms, they can beat him, especially since just because for me, I know obviously it's to do with maybe his flexibility in his hips and just the way he's distributed. He's just a bit too much on his toes for me when he's doing pass pro, and it just leads to him leaning into the contact, giving up sort of a bit of sort of the leverage to the edge defender. It can lead to him losing the rep. Obviously, he hasn't given up sacks, so he's able to recover from that. But in the pros where you're going up against some of the better edge rushers, and obviously the backyard brawl, you mentioned Savaiinaea Dennis and Kaija Kanti's up against guys who have made impacts in the league. But when you come up against those guys week in, week out, can those weaknesses be highlighted? I think so. And the footwork as well, sometimes, again, it might just be because he's going up against Abdul Carter, so everyone's going to look crap compared to him. But they were just too heavy in the pass pro slides where, yeah, he can again be slow and it can be stiff. So I think it's more than just the arm length argument for moving him side. It's just because the way that he plays and his way his play style is, it just projects better at a guard position where you're not put on an island one-on-one against an edge rusher. You've got a bit of help and you can sort of dictate terms a bit more than when you're having to project the outside of a pocket. So I think that's why it's more, he just projects away better. He could be a very good tackle for sure, but if you move him into left guard, you've got vast potential there. We've seen it time and time again. I know obviously it's a lazy thing to do, but it does work. Brandon Scherf, who everyone wants us to sign as a veteran offensive lineman, came into the league as a right tackle, moved inside to guard, was really damn good. Marshall Yanda came into the league as a tackle, moved inside to right guard, potential Hall of Famer. I think he's got that kind of ceiling at guard, while at tackle, I don't know. You've got maybe Jack Conklin. You can have really good, who obviously had a good couple of years at Cleveland, but it's kind of hit his ceiling and is coming down now. For me, I'm gambling on that Hall of Fame potential at guard rather than sticking him at tackle and potentially getting an average one at a higher value position, but not hitting all of his potential for me.
All right. I'm glad I find myself somewhere healthily in the middle, perhaps saying give him a go at tackle. Although you're saying give him a go at tackle too, but yes. Anyway, okay, let's go on to our next one. Ash, I realised I didn't put Wyatt Milum up at all on the lower third there. Dull. I had it ready to go, but I didn't. Who's your next guy?
Well, we're talking about people who are getting asked to move inside, but they maybe shouldn't be, and that's Jonah Savaiinaea, the Arizona right tackle, who's 6'4", 324 pounds, and is a junior. He spent all 3 years of his career at Arizona. At tackle, his RAS is at 9.19 with elite speed, good explosion, okay size, and DNQ agility because he didn't do all the drills. But offensive guard, he's a 9.82 with elite speed, good size and explosion, again, DNQ agility. His arm length is 33 and 0.88 inches. So within that threshold of like sort of leeway of that 34 to maybe be seen as a guard, a tackle in the league. So some teams, guard to others. This past season at PFF, 75.9 offensive grade, 82.7 pass blocking, 64.2 run blocking, 57.6 special teams. He played 738 snaps on offense, 478 pass blocking, 260 run blocking. 29 of these were inline, 345 at left tackle, 64 at right tackle. So he's versatile. He can play across the line, basically. Well, both tackle positions, basically. This past season, he did allow 15 pressures, which is 4 sacks, 2 QB hits, and 9 hurries, and also conceded a penalty. And he also played 13 special team snaps and didn't give a penalty on those. So the game I watched for him was the game this year at Texas Tech. In that game, he got a 68.2 grade from PFF, 88.9 pass blocking, 51.8 run blocking, played 82 snaps, 57 of these were in pass pro and 25 run blocking. He did give up one pressure, which was a hurry, and didn't concede a penalty. So run blocking wise, just the opening play of the game is a very, very good rep in zone where he blocks his guy and then transitions quickly up to the second level to block a linebacker. So he's showing that kind of good read of the game and then the agility, the sort of quickness to get up to that second level and block. But for the most part in run blocking, he just showed a lack of strength. Like he didn't exactly lose reps, but there weren't many of those like highlight reel wins really blowing a guy out of his weight. It was more just they were hand fighting. He blocks his gap, the back get through kind of things, which especially that was especially in the upper body, lower half, very good, but the upper body just maybe needs to put on a few more pounds, hit the bench press a bit more because as the PFF grades maybe reflect, run blocking really isn't his thing, but in pass pro, so much better. So the one pressure he gave up was with the QB just holding onto the ball too long, stepping up in the pocket, stepping around, and he eventually has to throw it away because you can't you can't block someone for like 5-6 seconds. Deals with looping stunts quite well in the game, so quite a few times. Texas Tech would line up the edge rusher, bring them inside, loop the DT around, trying to confuse the offensive line of Arizona. Savaiinaea just sees it, deals with it well, also dealt with a blitz really well on a sort of goal line situation. So I think there's a 2nd and goal. The Texas Tech send a linebacker blitz, just picks it up perfectly because he's got such active feet to keep his anchor going. So when he actually guys keeping his feet going, keeping the leverage going, making sure he's winning the reps. So rarely caught on his heels. He doesn't give up any ground to his rusher, though he does have issues adjusting to inside moves, again, targeting moves that target you inside shoulder, despite his technique forcing rushers that way. So that's maybe the thing he really needs to work on in the league is either adjusting his technique, forcing people outside where he's a bit better, or getting better at facing those inside moves. His experience at 3 offensive line spots, obviously he's played left tackle and right tackle this past season, but he also has taken many snaps at right guard in his career. Experienced the 6 offensive lineman role with his 29 inline snaps this season. But his lack of length means he does have issues against some of the rushers, both interior and edge rushers. Power and the lengthy ones will be able to sort of get their grips on him a bit quicker than some of the rushers, which will lead to some losses. So his comparisons, stick him at guard, Quinton Spain, sort of very, very good pass blocking guard with some work needed to do run blocking. But at tackle, Dwayne Brown, Dion Dawkins, these kind of very, very good pass blockers that need to have some work at in the run blocking. Hell, Taylor Decker, technically sound pass blocker who needed to improve on his run blocking, which he has done here. So his fit for us particularly would be probably a backup left guard with the potential to become either the starter there or at left tackle as and when we decide to move on from Decker if we don't move to Penne. He's got that kind of upside for me. So right now he's currently the 4th interior offensive lineman and 58th overall prospect on mock draft database, which projects him as a late second rounder. That's where I'd have him graded as a guard, but he projects just as well in terms of floor at tackle than he does at guard because of that superpower of being pass blocking. So that would raise his grade potentially if he was a tackle where he would go higher. So he's 58, if he's just stuck to the 58th overall ranking, that would make him the 7th overall tackle, just in front of Texas's Cam Williams and Wyatt Milum, we just mentioned, who's their 72nd overall prospect. So he definitely could be in play with pick 60, but either scenario of either us passing on him just because we want to pick someone else, or he's already way gone by then because someone's took him and will plan to play him at tackle. I won't be shocked by either either we take him, we pass on him, or he's gone by the time we get to 60, or we'll not be shocked. So teams that maybe potentially to watch for, I know I always do this once a week, though I know where I say, oh, he's perfect fit for another team. But Miami, where they just can stick him right tackle, protect 2 as blindside. Baltimore, because they literally only have 2 tackles on their roster right now. And then Seattle, who are obviously looking for an upgrade on Abe Lucas at right tackle. They're guys that maybe could see Savaiinaea and think, there's our right tackle of the future. But at the same time, if he falls to us, could instantly replace Glasgow at the sort of finesse guard spot where we do look for a bit more pass pro than run blocking. And then, we could mould him to be a starting left tackle in a couple of years, kind of like what PFF tried to make us do with Vicky Okwanu a couple of years ago in their mock drafts.
And have you seen any of him at all?
Not enough to have add much to that.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, and it's time for you to go with your second guy.
Right, so go with the big one on mine then. So we'll go to Minnesota for the next guy, and we'll go to Aireontae Ersery, who, again, another one I really like out here. So he's the hulking 6'6", 330-pound left tackle, as I mentioned, from the Minnesota Gophers. He's a career Golden Gopher. He's been there for 5 years. He spent 3 years as a starter at the left tackle position. Didn't really see much before that. So he's just started from the blind side on day one, and he's kept his way there. 2,344 snaps. At left tackle, 38 career starts. This is another guy who is highly experienced when it comes to the starting experience that he has. In 1,156 pass pro snaps, he's given up 5 sacks, 7 hits, and 26 hurries. Now, see, the first thing to know about Minnesota and the style of football they like to play, they love to run the football in Minnesota, and they have done for many years now. So if you want to be a lineman who's going to cut his boots in that team, you've got to be really good against the run. And this is where Ersery really stands out. And, he's first round grade on him potentially from a lot of people. He's going to go there. And this is really what he hangs his hat on. So, like I say, he's got a big frame, 330 pounds. He's 6'6". He's not too tall that guys are going to get under him a lot, but he's not too small that he can't overwhelm some of the bigger edges out there. He's a specialist. So in all facets of the game, if it's moving big edges out the way, tandem blocking, finishing the blockings for first, he's one of those who likes to send people to Pancake City, where he will just absolutely just maul them to the ground. But he'll do double blocks. Sometimes you'll even see him do triple blocks if he needs to, because he's a very physically gifted athlete as well. It's not just a big hulking frame. He's got the athleticism to back it up. So when it comes, he can be the old traditional road grader, just absolutely mauling his way through people, or he can be the guy that you can get pulling, that you can send into space. You put your running back behind him, and he's gonna, he's gonna dig out a road for them to go one way or the other. And I've against some of the better teams against run defense in this league, they've become a really good team over the last few years. He's got everything you want there. Say quick, agile, athletic, but he's strong as an ox. And in terms of his run game, for me, there's no obvious deficiency as to where he can get better. Obviously, he will just continue to develop. I think the counter move's good. He doesn't allow himself to get hung up on blocks very, much. He gets to where he needs to go. There's no concern over that whatsoever for me. Where it comes to is obviously the pass pro. So again, they're run heavy. They like to run the ball. They've not been as much of a passing team in recent years until this year, when Max Brosma came along onto the scene, and he's the first decent quarterback they've had in a long time. Max Brosma's had a very good year for them, and the passing game has taken leaps forward this year. So you want to see how does he do in pass protection, and just how good can he be at the next level. So I specifically made a note to look at his games where he's playing. I'm not too worried in pass pro again about the bigger, thicker edge rushers, because again, for me, he's got the feet, he's got the frame, the length, he's got everything you need to be able to deal with that. And you can see in the way he plays, not giving up many pressures and sacks over the years, because a lot of these more bigger guys, he can deal with easy. It's the speed guys. And this is where his ceiling's going to be at the next level. How well, again, do you do against the speed, and how well can you adapt at the next level? So obviously the two big ones this year, they played against Penn State, played against UCLA as well, because you've got Oladejo there. He's a good speed guy, and you want to see how he does against them. And for me, you've seen the development of his game this year. There are some deficiencies there. Obviously, he's not fully developed when it comes to it. But in terms of the speed against Abdul Carter really struggled against him, and he's one of the few tackles who has really stood up to him this year. But you watch him play, and it's not necessarily because he's beating him on reps. There's a lot of times, like Abdul Carter is another who's, his arm techniques, his get off is just crazily good. And you can see, there's often several times in a row where he's beating them with his arms and he's able to make a lane past him. But because Ersery is so big and because he's so athletic, if you can get to his edge, he can push you again a great way round the outside. So you can get hurries on the quarterback, but it ain't translating to sacks. It ain't translating to hits because he's able to recover. And he did it against both these guys. Oladejo had a quieter day against him, and it was a case of he was running round him, but he was never able to get to the quarterback because he couldn't deal with the frame and he wasn't quick enough to get all the way round. Carter pulled out every trick in the bag. Everything from he tried to submarine him, he's tried to hit him on the inside, the outside. He tried a lot, and he did get wins in there as well. But Ersery was able to stand up to it. He seemed to learn very quickly, and then the next time Carter would try it, he wouldn't be able to get anything against him. And I've seen enough against these speed rushers from him now to think that he will get there at the next level. I think, again, his athletic ability means that he will be able to adapt. I think you've just got to, you've got to get you've got to get the technique right. You've got to not overextend, which sometimes he does a little bit. The hand fighting technique is the big one. It's a little too wide at times. Guys can chop him from the inside, just get him off balance, and that's how they beat him. But I think it's just a question of technique for me. You get that right, make sure you don't overextend, just make sure that you can get the anchor there. Because a lot of times he goes looking for Carter and he'll get hands on him first. And when he does, Carter doesn't have a chance, not at his size and frame. As soon as he's got hands on him, he doesn't have the counter arsenal to get him off. So it's interesting for me with Ersery. It's a very simple, out of all the scouting I've done here, it's a very simple one for me. The run game I've no issues with. It's just the pass protection stuff. But I've seen enough that I think that he is a first round pick. I think he's got first round traits. Again, he's got the frame and length you want, the core strength, everything you need there, and again, the aggressiveness. I love how he finishes blocks. Like when he beats you, he makes sure you damn well feel it, and he beats you a lot. And I like those guys who are just, absolutely ruthless when it comes to how they finish. And this Minnesota team, as I tell you, when you have to run the ball so often, you like getting your hands on people, you like hurting people, and that's what he's all about. But he's just got that sneaky amount of athleticism that will translate to the pass game and will mean he can stand up as a blindside blocker in the NFL. Now, someone might move him across to right tackle, maybe. There's certainly no future home at him for guard. He will be a tackle at the next level. It just depends how quick you want to put him in that left tackle position. But he's potentially a top 3 tackle in this draft, and I think that's well earned from him. Again, I like the system he's come from. I like what he's all about, and I like the potential he has here. For me, it's just sort the technique. You've got a left tackle for 10 years to come, and I think someone's going to be very happy with him when they pick him in the first round.
Ash, any thoughts on him?
I've only seen like a couple of games from him. So I've seen the Michigan game where unfortunately TJ Guy did kind of show that speed rush element, bit of a weakness. And then I have seen a bit of the UCLA game because I was trying to watch the edge rusher we get connected to every week as if we're going to pick him in the first, even though he's a late day 2 guy at best. Yeah, I agree. It is the speed stuff that's going to get him in the next level just because of that frame. We've seen it a couple of years ago with the Daniel Falele, the tackle, obviously same school guy that the Ravens took, just massive hawking guy that needed work on the pass pro. Hasn't really happened for him, unfortunately, but I think is a bit better. You just see the thing he has that Falele didn't have is the footwork, the feet. For someone that big, his feet are really good. It's just, again, the leverage of, because he's so high-waisted, it's hard for him to bend down, and yet the speed guys can just game sometimes. But going somewhere where they've got a good offensive line coach like we do, dare I say it, like Minnesota, like Philadelphia do, with the right Dakota coaching that can get him, just teach him the right technique, he could be a very, very, very good tackle which is scary because, if Philadelphia get their hands on him, they turn him into their Lane Johnson replacement. God help us. If Baltimore get their hands on him again, because they already have 2 tackles on the roster right now, and they turn him into a great tackle like they've done with Orlando Brown before, God help us.
I haven't seen a huge amount from him. The only thing that really stuck out to me when I did some surface level work is the number of penalties that he's committed in his career. And it's not a lot, but it's a lot compared to all of the other people we've talked about so far. 3 this year, 3 last year, and 8 the year before that. Obviously, 8 was in his first year as a starter, and then 3 and 3. But, some of the guys we've been talking about have been like 0 and 1. So I don't know whether he just needs to be a little bit more disciplined on when to let go and when to release, because that's something which I think is easily coachable. So that's not a concern particularly to me. I have nothing else to say really about him other than he's an impressive human being as a physical specimen. So, yeah.
He'll do a lot better than Falele because he's a lot better athletically. What was Falele's RAS? About 2? Ronta is his 10 or just shy of 10.
Falele's a starter now, isn't he?
He's far more athletic than Falele was. He will last on the edge. Falele had to kick inside because he's just a big lump of, stone. But I think Falele's good. Falele will be a lot better. He'll get there eventually.
Ersery will be a lot better, you mean?
Ersery. But Falele's a starter on the Baltimore Ravens team. Fair play to him.
He's their right guard now.
Yeah.
As I said, they've got Ronnie Stanley and they've got Roger Rosengarten at tackle. They've got nothing else.
I've got nothing else. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
I
was fishing for that. Well, I meant at tackle.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Time to go for my next guy. And this is going to be Tate Ratledge from Georgia, who was a very interesting watch. So Ratledge is a redshirt senior, having been at Georgia for 5 seasons, the most recent 3 as a starter. He has been a right guard his entire career. He has barely played a snap outside of that. In this most recent season, he had a PFF grade of 74.4 overall, which was a 74.7 run block, 77.3 pass block. That was not quite as good as 2023, where his pass blocking was about 10 points higher. He gave up 1 sack in this most recent season and 7 pressures. Didn't give up any sacks last year and only 5 pressures. And then in 2022, 1 sack and 6 pressures. So it was an entire career at Georgia, 3 years as a starter. Just over 2,000 snaps, only 2 sacks given up and 18 pressures. Obviously, those are much less than some of the tackles we're talking about. You do give up less pressures and sacks, generally speaking, from the interior. That's why the tackles get the money. You are protected by both your tackle and your centre in the guard spot. So take that with a pinch of salt. But, the production against him is pretty good. So that's something encouraging. In terms of RAS, he is going to be one that might be hit with the stick of this is just an athletic freak, because he's got a 9.96 RAS score. He's 6'6.5" and 308 pounds. So basically the same height and weight as Wyatt Milum, just playing inside. 32-inch vert and a 9.5 foot broad. 4.97 40-yard dash is one of the best guard 40-yard dashes of all time. 1.72 10-yard split is a lot more relevant, of course, and that is still one of the best 10-yard splits we've ever seen as well. He didn't do a shuttle, but his 3-cone was 7.38. That's exceptional. So this is a guy that's very fast in a straight line, very fast horizontally, not the strongest, 25 on the bench. You might hope for a little bit more, but very explosive, tall. Physically, this is someone that you can get behind. I watched 2 games from him. Tennessee in week 12, which was his worst game with a 55.4 grade. He gave up 1 pressure. And then Georgia Tech in the rivalry game where Georgia lost. Needing to win to solve a playoff spot, and they did not get over the line against Georgia Tech. And he had a 65.4 grade in that game, but didn't give up any pressures on that game. Really nice explosion into his block. Talking about the Tennessee game now, nice anchor on him. His punch is quite ineffective, which is not great for a guard. He's very aggressive, though, which I think makes up for that, especially in the run game. He is a smooth operator, so he knows exactly what he's doing and why he's doing it. So when he's doing his screens, instead of just running upfield, some of his fakes or some of like the chips to get up there are really, really nice. You know, he sells things very, very well. He plays with excellent pad level. For a 6'6.5" guy, it's absolutely key. It's much better than anyone else I've watched so far in this cycle in the offensive line position. So, you know, even when he loses the initial punch, he does very well retreating and redirecting. It's a really good trait of his. He does lean forward a little bit, which allows defenders to sometimes win quickly in a kind of hand fight, and he might lose a rep or two. Despite the fact that he's not a mauler, you know, his bench press does actually show off the fact that he's not the strongest guy in the world, but he does enough in the run game. That aggression kind of overcomes the fact that he's not the strongest guy in the world. Again, there's another rep where he overextends on a premature punch and loses on the hand fight. Multiple times, penetrators got between him and his right tackle. I actually don't think Georgia had the best right tackle in the world this year. So I kind of think partially that was him doing his job. I can't remember whether there was an injury at right tackle for Georgia and they were playing a backup. I should have looked at that, but I didn't. But, you know, the fact that he's got good horizontal ability, that he can quickly get out, and the fact that there was some penetration out on his outside shoulder makes me think it was more of the tackle's problem than his. Against Georgia Tech, showed off some strong hands in this game. So, you know, when I said his block was ineffective previously, that's not necessarily consistent game to game, and he does show the ability to do that in some reps. He's a plus pulling lineman. You would expect that of someone who's quick horizontally and vertically, so they do pull him quite a lot and have him blocking on the outside. The Lions do that obviously with regularity, especially from the guard spot, so that's a real plus point for us. When he's confronted with having to block multiple guys at once, he's shown the ability to do that against Georgia Tech, which was really good. When he gets no rushes in his gap, he's actively looking for work and to help his teammates. That's really nice to see. And again, he's got great hands in terms of locking up defensive linemen when he gets hands on them. So that was really nice to see. So in summary, he's only played at guard. He's only played at right guard. And that might hurt people who really value versatility, especially in the interior of the offensive line. I don't think that's someone who you really would like to put in at left guard or kick out to tackle. I mean, given his physical profile, there's no reason why he might not be able to live on the edge, but we've never seen that. So I think he's probably going to be a right guard only, but he's a very athletic player. He shows good, not great power. Good speed. I really think that teams that do pull their linemen a lot are going to really like him. He's very aggressive, which means that teams are also going to like him, despite the fact that he doesn't necessarily finish people. He does do some good work with that. He can be a little bit on his toes too much and needs to kind of just sit down a little bit, but he's got a good anchor. He knows what he's doing. He's an intelligent lineman. Good grip strength. The way that he kind of fences people off sometimes, or kind of steers people, or way he recovers it and kind of redirects people. There are some kind of wrestler-like traits in there, which I think the teams are going to really like. If the issue with penetrating linemen between him and the tackle is his issue, and I mean, it's something that he should be able to potentially react to, so maybe it is partially his issue, then maybe, like I said, with Milum, I might worry about players with elite first step quickness being able to kind of beat him off the snap. So that's something that I would like to see a little bit more improvement on, especially since his 3-cone was so good and he's so good as a pulling lineman. You kind of expect him to do a little bit better with that. So, yeah. Otherwise, the other thing that's a knock on him is injuries. So he's had 2 bad injuries in his college career. His first start was in 2021 after redshirting in 2020, and in his very first start against Clemson, he had a Lisfranc fracture which ended his season. And then he didn't have any issues until this most recent season, where he had a tightrope procedure for a high ankle sprain. So he missed, I think it was between week 3 and week 10 with that injury. He still came back to be an all SEC player, which I think speaks a lot to how his peers see him. This is a very high upside interior offensive lineman, and a high floor too. I think he's going to be a starter day one for the majority of teams in this league from where he's going to be taken. I haven't factored in injury into my grade, and so I'm going to give him a mid-second as well. I've got him just above Milum in terms of where I'd like to see him go. So in that sort of 42 to 54 sort of range is where I kind of see him going. I think he's going to be a terrific player at the next level, and I think that he's someone that the Lions, if he's available at 60, should highly consider for that other guard spot and play Mahogany potentially at left guard. Boys, it's Georgia, so potentially you've seen some of Ratledge. Have you seen any of him at all?
Yeah, I saw a couple bits of him. Obviously, the Ole Miss game, trying to scout Jared Ivey because that was one of his first games back. Admittedly, you could tell because per the PFF grade, 22.6 pass blocking grade, exactly great, but still 70.4 overall because the run blocking was still there. Like, he is, I can remember seeing some of the pictures of him on the sideline. He is very much, he's going to be high on Eric and Between the Numbers Anthony's grit index for sure. He will tick a load of those boxes for the team. It's just, can he get over the injuries? And sometimes the bits I saw watching him, especially in the run game, sometimes just the pad level's a bit too high, not to use a scary word from the previous regime, but he does need to work on his fundamentals a bit in that. But for the most part, he's a very solid guard prospect. No ifs, buts, and maybes about it. Obviously, I know quite a lot of the guys we've considered so far are ones that you could consider moving to other positions. With Ratledge, you stick him at guard, you leave him at guard, you know what you're getting. No ifs, buts, and maybes about it. So, yeah, I'll be happy if we take him at 60, for sure. It will come in and, as you say, challenge definitely for a starting role pretty early, and will be a nice solid guard for you for the next 10 years, potentially. Someone you definitely sign probably after a rookie contract, unless the injuries do really hit him. And even then, you still probably get, whenever he is healthy, a nice starting guard, top 32 guard in the league, which is very good considering some of the state of some of the guard situations around the league. That's why certain teams had to, really overpay for them this offseason. Not looking at anyone but Chicago.
I think sometimes you've got to look at... So we take Ratledge for me. You've got to look beyond sometimes a play. You've got to look at his value to a team and what happens when a player goes down and what he's all about. When Tate Ratledge got injured at the start of this year, Georgia's feeling of invulnerability left them because he is the leader on that offensive line without a shadow of a doubt. Now, guards don't get made captains or anything like that, but when you talk about someone's importance to a team, he might be the most violent guard in this draft. He leads by example. But he's a 6'6" guard. Like, he's huge. And you see him play. He sets the tempo. He sets the tone. He's the guy who puts in the heavier hits, the harder hits. He's the one who leads by example. He's the one who drags his team along with him. And I found it odd because it was only when he wasn't there and I watched George and I'm like, something doesn't feel right with them. And he's not playing. And then when he comes back, all of a sudden you're like, hang on, that's what he adds to this team. Now, it sounds lazy, but that shows you what type of a leader he is, that people follow him, and and to do that, especially at a program like Georgia, just shows the gravitas with which you're held, and you see the way he plays the game, and you can understand why people rally behind him. And, if we're not talking about this injury this year and he's had a healthy season, you are, even with the positional versatility issues, like the fact he's still a high day 2 pick in that area without any sort of versatility whatsoever shows you how good a player he is and how good he can be at the next level. And I think with him, it's issues that you would have with a 6'6" guard. You've got to be careful with your pad levels. like guys will try and expose that at the next level. You've got to be careful that you're not too aggressive as well. Like Milum, you've just got to temper the aggression a little bit because there are guys at the next level who will take advantage, especially if they're going to try and rip you, something like that. That's going to expose you a little bit. But in terms of, him and how he plays and that, you're right. He's going to plug and play in as a guard right away. And again, I think he's going to offer you another leader on the team without ever needing to be a captain or anything. Like he's that big a presence. And as I say, when you miss someone that much, you stop and you're like, huh. Like there's a lot more to him than just the stat sheet would give. So I think he's great. I think he's the kind of guy that Dan would really like as well, given how he plays. Like, Dan likes guys who finish, who let you know that you've been in a fight with them, and he absolutely is. So, if his medical's clear and he shows that there's nothing too long in the future, then he'll get picked on day 2 quite happily. I think low key, if you don't take a guard in the first and you go your defensive line, Detroit does, there is an option there with pick 60 for you potentially, and I think they will like him and what he brings to the table. So yeah, he's going to be good when he gets going.
We all like him. This is nice. Feels like the first time we've kind of had some consensus here, which is refreshing. All right, it is time for everyone's last guy, and we start with Ashley Soden.
Yeah. We start with the lowest, we start with the highest, and this is someone that Lions fans have probably heard a lot about the past couple of weeks because the amount of mocks giving him us at 28 have exploded exponentially. Of course, I'm talking about the guy who gave the show its name, Zabel, the North Dakota State left tackle. He's 6'5", 312 pounds, and he's a redshirt senior, and he's also the only guy I could find an age for. He is 23 years old. He spent all 5 years of his college career at North Dakota State. Fortunately, no RAS from him because he didn't do any speed or agility testing, but the size grades, good at both tackle and guard, but elite at center. His arm length is 32 inches, which is, again, way below that 34-inch cutoff that we mentioned earlier, which perhaps suggests why he's been projected more as an interior player in the pros rather than sticking at left tackle. His PFF grade this past season, 90.4 overall, 93.1 pass blocking, 86.4 run blocking, and 66.8 special teams. He played 970 snaps on offense, 453 pass blocking, 517 run blocking, 8 were in line, 961 were at left tackle, and then there was a weird one field goal snap that was on offense that PFF want to get rid of, so they run a fake or something, and he was on there. I have no idea. This past season, he's gave up 7 pressures, 1 sack, 2 QB hits, and 4 hurries. He also conceded a further 7 penalties, and on special teams, he played 88 snaps and conceded no penalties. So the game I watched for him was one of the openers against, which was at Colorado. In that game, against arguably way better opposition than what he's used to playing, 90.1 offensive grade, 90.5 pass block, 85.1 run blocking, played 72 snaps, 36 each in pass and run blocking, did not give up a single pressure, did not give us up a single penalty. So in run blocking, he's very quick to get out of his stance. He's got that burst just to get out, get to the second level, and he blocks a line back on the run play, literally one of the first plays of the game. Though a few plays later, he is guilty of an uncalled holding, so he had his arm around the rusher's neck, so sometimes those hands can get a bit too high, but there are also some very, especially in the run blocking. So there was one where he sees a rusher coming, he knows he's got a receiver coming in motion, so what does he do? Just slap the rusher aside so the wide receiver is coming in motion, just runs into him and pancakes him. I was watching it on Saturday on the way to Northampton, and I burst out laughing in the car. It was very funny to watch. He has good enough mobility to be used as a puller on power plays, which we know we love to do with our guards. And he constantly drives his feet and his legs to push his defender back when he latches onto them. Though, as I mentioned earlier, with the uncalled holding, those hands can slide a bit too high to keep his grip on the more powerful players when he's going up against them. In pass blocking, he's able to defend all 4 points of attack from the rusher, but again, he's most weak against the inside shoulder rushes, which again, weakness of penne. So maybe part of the reason why he's been projected inside as well, where we have a centre and the tackle to help defend his shoulders. He has a very, very good counter move against ball rushes where he sort of slaps/pushes the inside arm of the rusher down to get them off balance and reassert his leverage over them. He's also he's got good mirroring skills against rushers who try to attack his outside shoulder or go around the corner on him to sort of fence off their rush. He does lose a rep against Colorado, but he has the awareness to see his QB scrambling upfield and then tries to run upfield to block a linebacker on the QB run. Again, nearly gets there as well. So again, showing some of the sort of athleticism that wasn't shown on his RAS because he just didn't do any of the testing. Again, also shown a few plays later where the QB scrambles while out wide towards the sideline. He's got just about enough mobility to keep up with them. He's also not phased by stunts because of experience. So there's a couple of times where Colorado did the kind of lumping stunts that we mentioned earlier with Savaiinaea. Just not phased by them, just able to stay square with the edge as soon as they peel off and the DT comes, reassesses, gets square again, blocks the DT. He even does well once against Colorado where he was facing two rushers at once. He just holds them long enough to open a scramble lane for the QB, which he happily takes and gets 15 to 20. I think it was a 25-yard rushing touchdown from it, which is great. The best thing about him is he's got that good hip flexibility and a good core to maintain his blocks without getting holding penalties on them. So stuff we mentioned earlier where sometimes people can have a bit too, not enough hip flexibility and it does lead to some stuff. Not an issue with Zabel at all. And the general stuff, quick to find work if his assignment is dealt with. So in both run and pass. So as mentioned earlier with the QB run where he gets up, he tries to get upfield and block for it. He's always looking for work, looking for one more person to put in the dirt. And he was trusted enough by the team to leave him on an island. So the gap between him and his left guard, sometimes it looked like he was a tight end in the slot with how much gap there was. It was pretty amazing to watch. And yet still managed to block his edge rusher. The issue with him though is, again, as we mentioned, the arms. He's just too small for in terms of his arms and his hands, maybe for an NFL tackle, which is why quite a lot of places now projects him inside, which is why at the Senior Bowl, he did most of his work at guard and center. But he does have experience playing the 6 offensive lineman role. So if you want to bed him in that way, getting guard reps, getting him 6 offensive line snaps, really using his run blocking prowess to get him integrated, it's a good idea. So my comparison for him is a bit lazy because it's helmet scouting, but Dylan Redun's the guy who the Titans took a couple of years ago out of North Dakota State, tried him at right tackle, didn't really work, moved inside to right guard, and it's stuck there. So obviously Redun's still can play can still play tackle for them. With Zabel, I argue he's got 6 positional versatility. He can play any of the offensive line spots plus 6 offensive line, though he does project best and those interior where he has someone on his shoulders to help protect them. His fit for us would be a potential starter at right guard, so the power guard position because of his power and his run blocking, but he could play left guard if we need him to, as well being a primary backup at both center, offensive tackle, and as a 6 offensive lineman. So he's currently the 2nd overall interior offensive lineman and 30th overall prospect on Mockdraft database, which puts him as a late first rounder. That's where I'd slot him as well. Like he is a feasible candidate for 28 or slightly later if we trade back a couple of picks. But at the same time, I won't be surprised if Seattle takes him with their first round pick. I know John Schneider supposedly hates taking interior offensive linemen, the sort of get out clause of, oh yeah, we'll try him at tackle first. Then if it doesn't work, we'll slide him inside. That's what he's probably going to do. So I won't be surprised if Seattle picks come, they get him and they fix their offensive line. While he's played well enough at left tackle for the Bison, given the level of competition and the concerns about his arm length and hand size, I would project him best, as I said, inside as a guard with room scheme versatility. You can skip in a zone scheme, a gap scheme. He'll do well enough, and he's got good enough pass blocking chops to not be a liability against some of the best interior pass rushers from the league. So Chris Jones, Quinn Williams, Lee McNeil, he'll be able to hold his own. So I've got a late first round grade on him, and if somehow he's there at 28, it would be very tempting. As much as I want an edge rusher, he would come and fix our offensive line. The purring engine under the hood of our offense can continue to purr for 5 more years with him at the helm.
Again, I've not really seen enough to be able to add a great deal. FCS prospect, don't watch as much of that, so.
All right. In that case, we're moving on to your last guy.
Which is quite weird because I have an FCS prospect to end this, but this is one I've specifically gone out my way to watch. So there was a moment during Senior Bowl. I'm watching the Senior Bowl, having a good time. It was a good game this year, and as the game was going on, I was watching. I think it was the national team, and I was thinking, why is there one defensive lineman who's about 4 yards behind the rest of them? And what is he doing back there? And it was to do with the guard that he was up against, who was just absolutely mauling everybody who was put in his way. And I was looking at the helmet and thinking, I don't recognize that one. And it turned out to be a Sac State helmet, the Sacramento State Hornets. And the prospect in question goes by the name of Jackson Slater. And I was there and I was like, consider me intrigued. And ever since then, I have started watching this guy because I was so impressed with how he was dealing with SEC level opposition and Big Ten opposition coming from an entire career in the FCS. I'm like, what's the buzz about this guy? And turns out, there's a lot of buzz to be had about this guy. He's absolutely nailed everything during this offseason circuit, up and to including the combine. So just a little bit about him. So Jackson Slater, as I mentioned, he is the 6'4", 316-pound left guard from the Sacramento State Hornets. He has spent 4 years there. He started every season since he was a freshman. 44 games he has started, and he has played more. You talk about the most experienced guys out there. This is about as experienced as you can get. 2,985 snaps at left guard. He's got 202 at left tackle as well. He's done a little bit of clear up there. I think it was in 22. They asked him to go out there a bit. He's given up 4 sacks, 4 hits, 26 hurries on 1,723 pass rush reps. And this guy, when it comes to accolades, it's about as good as it comes. 3 times consecutive All-American, 3 times consecutive All-Big Sky. And, he's got every accolade you need at Sac State here. But why? It's the profile about him and what he can be at the next level. So first off, said he absolutely went and slayed the combine. So bear in mind his size, 6'4", 316-pound offensive lineman. He ran the 40 in 5.01 seconds. 31 bench press reps, which was second best out of the interior lineman there. Also a 9-foot broad jump, which again for a lineman, really good. Like, he has the athletic profile first and foremost that you want at the next level to run in any sort of scheme. As say guy you want to get into space, guy's pulling blocker. He has everything. But what makes him so good at what he does, and it was what I picked up on at the Senior Bowl, and that is just the strength that this guy plays with, like the power that he plays with when it comes to pass protection, when it comes to coming up against double teams. If he's in the run game, he's got an anchor. You can't shift him. Like, you see some of these big hulking nose tackles, DTs, who he comes up against, they can't shift him. His anchor is terrific. The way he's just able to bury himself in the ground. He doesn't give up much in the pass protection game whatsoever. When it comes to the run game, like I say, with how quick he is, he's on top of defensive linemen quickly. He just sheer overwhelms them. And this is not just a case of him being athletic and big. It's the technique as well. And you saw it in the Senior Bowl. And I watched the reps closer. Like, the hand fighting, the ability to get the leverage, to get under the pads. And once he's under your pads, you're going for a walk, whether you like it or not, which was just, it was one of the reasons he really stood out there. But you go and watch his tape back from his playing days, and it's exactly the same. And this is against FCS opposition, which is nowhere near as good. But as a run game, he's an absolute road mauler. In the pass protection game, as I say, there's not much he can't deal with when it comes to, again, you don't get the speedier guys on the inside, but big hulking nose tackles, fine. The bigger type of DTs, even the more, skinny pass, sackmaster DT types you come up against there. He's able, he'll overwhelm you with his hands. He'll get his hands on you. You're not getting anywhere near the quarterback from there. His side to side, the lateral movement from him in the run game is uber quick. He never misses his assignment. He's very well trained when it comes to his technique there. And you look and you're like, this is potentially a starter. Like sooner rather than later. If you don't, we've just talked about Zabel. If you want a guard coming from the FCS to start, you want to spend pick 28, that's fine. But if you want to spend a day 2 pick on a guy from the FCS who could do exactly the same, this is the guy that you get. I think TDN now have him ranked in their top 90 in this class. Like the rise, I think just people didn't know about him and what he was about. But now that he's come up against better opposition and showed what he can do, as say, you're a technical clinician here, and that will always carry weight in the NFL. But when you've got the athletic profile and you've got the strength profile to back that up, yes, it's going to take time to adapt to the massive level of increase you're going to get here. But you put him in a solid starting line with a good tackle and a center next to him, you could have a starting tackle for the next 10 years, and you're not even going to need to sit and develop him because, as I say, it's just the core strength. Everything he's about is what the NFL loves these days. Guys who maul in the run game, who love getting up to the second level, who can deal with these more athletic, shifty linebackers and DBs. Like, that's what Sac State love doing with him. If you ever see these, good run defending DBs, these things love to come up, they put him on them, and he seems to deal with them with ease. Now, again, as I say, the starting level caliber he's coming up against is going to be a big jump for him. But I look and I see, like, this could be a big surprise. He could start day 1 for a team in the NFL, and maybe it could be a place like here. I'm not so sure. I'd love Mahogany to play this year with Glasgow and not bed 2 new guards in at once. But if you want to go down that route, if you think Glasgow's not doing well enough, then he's certainly an option when you're picking him round 3 here. You may not even get him. You might have to go up and get him like you did with Broderick, something like that. But I don't know. He's just really intriguing to me. I love guys who overwhelm and destroy, and that's what he's done at his level. And again, I saw him do it at the Senior Bowl against much better opponents. I think there's a real diamond in the rough here to be had with Jackson Slater. And again, you're not going to have to pay 28 like you're going to have to with Zabel. So again, another really intriguing prospect for me who's just shot up out of nowhere, but it's not undeserved hype, I think is what I'm trying to say. And again, when you got the athletic profile, you got the strength profile, you got the technical profile, those are the 3 things you need at the next level, and he's got them all. And I really look forward to seeing where he goes and what he does. If it's with us, you'll hear no complaints from me whatsoever. Hank will make a king monster out of this guy. I guarantee that.
Just to highlight exactly what glow up he received after going to the Senior Bowl. Before the Senior Bowl, he was ranked on Mock Draft Database as the 300th overall player. After the Senior Bowl, that went up to around 160 or so. I'm trying to get the mouse exactly on the point. 164. Or, yeah, so there's something in that realm. And now he's at his highest ever, which is at 117. And that's the consensus. So obviously, there are people much higher than that. As Ant has said, TDN have him as a solid day 2 player. So there are a lot of people very high on him. Ash, have you seen anything of him at all?
Can't say I have, but I've been doing kind of similar to you. So I pulled up Mock Draft Database, seeing where he was on that. I've looked at the draft board profile for him on PFF, looked at his RAS. I would love him, especially since, for me, especially with the technical stuff you mentioned, I know we love Frank to bits, and he says he wants to keep playing, but here's your backup plan. Because quite a lot of the things I've read and heard about him, he projects a really, really good center, which you can bed him in, beat into the sort of first man up off the bench in the interior, get him those reps that way, and then if Glasgow takes a nosedive, you can put him in potentially left guard, or if we get another situation and we get him later as just a backup guy, and then you mold him into the next centre. So if Frank decides to medically retire at the end of his contract, there's your next guy up. I'm very on board with it, and it will fit the sort of profile of the team. We do seem to like to dip into the lesser known wells, as you mentioned with Broderick, drafting the problem a couple of years ago with James Houston. We do like to sort of go for some of the drafting Sawsdall, going sort of under the radar sometimes. Slater fits that, and hopefully he has the best like hit rate of all of them, because that's the thing he's got that maybe the others didn't really, is that sort of the physical stature, but also the technical stuff to be able to make an instant impact.
I haven't seen any of him, so I am going to move swiftly on to our last guy. I need to actually load up on here, but it is going to be Josh Conerly Jr. out of Oregon. I'm failing epically to do this quickly, so apologies. Right, that's it on YouTube, and then on the display as well. Okay, Josh Conerly. So he is a junior. I'm afraid, is he a redshirt sophomore? Looks like he's a junior. He barely plays in his first year, so if he's a redshirt sophomore, same difference, but you know. 6'4.5", 311 pounds, 33.5-inch arm length. So in that funny tier where he's fine as long as everything else works out. He's a career left tackle. Played his entire career there. He's given up 1 sack in each of the last 2 years, playing over 900 snaps in each year, which is, you know, pretty damn big. So he's around 2,000 snaps already, which some of the guys who've played 3 years are only around 2,000 snaps. So obviously Oregon going deep in both years has really elevated how many snaps he's played in each year. 1 sack in each year, 17 pressures in 2023 allowed, 9 pressures allowed in 2024, so there's some significant improvement there. Watched him play against UCLA in week 5, which was a PFF grade of 75.4. He gave up 1 penalty but no pressures. In 2024, his overall grade was 78.3 with an 83.6 pass blocking grade and a 72.5 run blocking grade. First play in this game that you watch from the Oregon offense is a Poole play from left to right, which he's a pulling player. Didn't quite get there, but really showing off the athleticism to do that. I forget that I didn't talk about his Raz, sorry. 24 on the bench, which is okay, but not great. 34.5-inch vert. Yikes. 9.82 on their incredible 8'7" broad, so that's more average, but 5.05 40-yard dash is good. 1.7 seconds 10-yard split is one of the best we've ever seen from the tackle position. Right, back to the game. Gets upfield well, defense off the defensive ends, really nicely done, good angle taken. Seems to have a really nice low pad level, quite smart with his reading of who's coming and who isn't, especially when, you know, UCLA really like to mask who's coming in and make you try and guess. So that was really good to see. Good hand fighter. He's patient. He allows the defender to go first and counters and anticipates exceptionally well. He's explosive out of his stance in run blocking. Again, more examples of him getting low and driving hard. A lot of the Oregon rushing offense is designed to go behind him specifically. They targeted him compared to Cornelius on the other side. His kick out stride and pass pro is really, really good. He's very aggressive. For a screen, he basically pulled out a wrestling move to pull him out of the way. It was really cool to watch. He's just someone who kind of gets you out of your seat. Really nice timing of his punches. So I said he's nice and patient when it comes to pass blocking and waiting for that punch to come. His punch is really nicely timed consistently. When he does get beat, his recovery is exceptionally good. So again, that sort of get back, redirect around and make sure that rush is going behind the quarterback if he does get beat. It feels like sometimes he kicks out a little bit too far and then he can get beat from people coming in on the inside. It's exactly the same problem as Cornelius, but just less frequent. It was only something I saw a little bit on tape. His hand placement is a little bit high. Sometimes I saw them directly on the shoulder pads with the palm looking like it could slip over the top. And sometimes there was one high, one low, and they weren't working terrifically well independently. So either matching or good independent hands is something I'd like to see. It wasn't as consistent as I wanted it to be. It was good, but not fantastic. Really nice reading of a stunt once again. UCLA, like I say, they like to keep you guessing with who's coming and who's not, but they also like to bring the inside guys out and outside guys in, and they were really doing well passing people off between him and his left guard. Aggressive at the point of attack. He goes looking for action. He really wants to maul people. When they brought a blitz on his side and he didn't get any help from the running back or the left guard, he did well to put himself in the way of one block to block the other guy too. It was a really nice rep to see. Anchor seems very sound. He can just sit down when he needs to and he's not going to get pushed back very easily. The screenplays, very athletic, but rarely called upon to get to the second level in usual plays. Like, they were kind of running power behind him. It was very rare I saw him try and get up to the linebacker level, which I kind of find a bit weird, and it might have been game specific. But because he's so athletic, because he's so quick horizontally and vertically, it's something I'd love to see a bit more of from him. I'm pretty sure it's just a team-specific thing. Just very fluid, explosive out of his stance. Grip strength is really good. Tries to lock up a win very quickly and does that most of the time. His power is the thing which slightly lacks, which again is kind of the same thing that I have with Milum. But for me, Conerly's pad level's much better. He's more athletic, significantly more athletic. I think the angles he takes are really good. The hand placement is the only negative I really see with Conerly at the moment. I don't understand so coming into this process when I hadn't watched him too much, I saw that a lot of people were trying to project him into guard, and I think a lot of people have said he should be a guard at the next level. I don't see it at all. This is a tackle, and this is a very, very good tackle. Sort out the hand placement. This is a franchise left tackle. I have no qualms about that whatsoever. Explosive, aggressive, good, plays with good leverage. Like one of the better guys in terms of how low he plays, I think. You see some kind of really contrasting draft profiles with him. So some people have him going top 10 in the whole draft. Some people have him going middle of the second round. It's all over the place with Conerly. For me, I have him as a solid first round pick. I think he's going to be in that mid to late day one range. I think he should be in that sort of 14 to 20 range. I wouldn't be surprised if the league is slightly lower on him. And this is one of the reasons why I said the whole class is kind of weird. I think there are quite a few guys that are going to be in this range at this position, and we'll go into some of those other guys in a minute. But I would be delighted if the Lions grabbed him on day one. Can he kick inside? Yes, he can. So if you wanted to start him day one at left guard, that's fine. Like, I'm perfectly happy with that. To be honest, I don't see any reason why, given the fact that he's not the tallest tackle in the world, nor the heaviest, that he could play anywhere along the offensive line, really. Like, there's no reason why not. He's strong enough to play inside, even though he's not the strongest guy in the world. I really like how fluid and how quick he is. So if you wanted him to play left guard, I think that would actually work really well as a finesse guy. Right guard wouldn't be the best projection in the world because I think he'd like ideally a little bit more power, but I think he could do it in a pinch. I think he could play swing. I think he could play right tackle too. Like, again, power-wise, maybe he's not quite as good as you would like him to be, but this is just a very polished prospect who I'm kind of a little bit in love with, to be honest. So that's Josh Conerly. Expect him to go late day one is where I think the league are going to end up on him. I'm slightly higher than that. We'll see where he goes. Boys, another Oregon tackle for you. What have you seen from Josh Conerly Jr.?
I don't like him in the first for us.
For us
Because
or generally?
For us, for one simple reason, and that's for me, he is way better in a zone scheme that will be able to use athleticism he has, opposed to the more gap power scheme that we run. That I know on if we see we have moved to more zone in the past couple of years, but we're still primarily a gap scheme. For him, that would lower his grade because he's not as good as that. He, as you mentioned, he does sometimes lack the like sort of functional strength to play in that kind of scheme. So for us, he'll probably be a second rounder, but for other teams, I'm looking at the Rams that play the wide zone schemes. He'll be way up on their boards. That's why, for me, spoiler alert for our first round mock, and we do it in a couple of weeks, I've penciled Conerly in for them because they need a tackle and he fits their scheme to a T. So for us, that small gap, he probably would be a second round talent. But for those sort of zone schemes, running outside zone, those kind of ones, so your Shanahans, your McVeys, you can trace all of it from there. They're going to love Conerly. While the more powerful guys to us, Chicago, arguably, Jets, let's go off the Dan Campbell tree, they're going to want your more powerful ones, like the ones we're going to get to in a minute. So I do like him. I do like Conerly. It's just, for us, there's better players.
And any thoughts on Conerly?
I think he gets a bad rap so he was a running back, right? Until not so long ago. He's not played left tackle that much in his career. Like, he played running back at high school. He's transitioned to tackle. He's played 2 years as a starter at left tackle, and he's a first round pick. Like, that just goes to show you the level at which he's played. The fact that he's not a career offensive lineman. The fact that he had very little starting experience before they put him there, and then they've just put him there. Like, this is, people say the technique is a bit defunct, the technique, the footwork all needs work. Well, duh. He's not got that much starting experience there. He's 21 years old. He's very young. He's very raw. And the fact that he's still talked about in the conversation that he is now with the growth he's still got to go is crazy. Like, his ceiling is very high. And I think he's got a particularly high floor as well. Because hell, even if he doesn't work as a left tackle, even if you do need to move him, but I don't think you need to move him because I think you need to keep developing him at the position that he's not got much experience at. Because again, the floor's already really high for him. Ahmad, not for us. Hell no. Like, I don't want someone at that point, it's just not for me. But he should go in the first round. I would say a younger team who's developing, a non-contender just yet. Maybe someone who's starting from scratch, someone who's going to take a quarterback early, whatever. They're going to get the blindside protector for the next 10 years. Bet him in, and then when you're ready to compete, he'll be ready to go. I think somewhere like that would be great for him, but I think you would be crazy to start trying to move him around and that, given the level of development he's shown in such a little amount of time at the position and with his limited starting experience. You're talking about him in round one circles already. Just imagine where he could be. He'd have stopped there for another year, had a third year, we'd be talking about maybe a top 10 pick. Potentially, he would be in mock drafts for that going forward, and the size and everything. But again, I've seen the bits from him in college, and I'm just not willing to just throw that away yet. I think he's a very raw talent. I don't think he's begun to scratch his potential. So, yeah, someone should pick him high, not us, but someone else should pick him high, put him in there right away, let him sink or swim. I think he's that type of player. And he'll go out and do really well. So yeah, I like him. Just not for us.
All right, that's all the players that we had prepared for, but there are still other potential first-round picks in the mix, and offensive linemen are hard to scout, as you see here. The guys that we've taken individually, we sometimes don't have a huge amount to say about the ones the other guys have picked individually. So it may be we have nothing to say about these guys, but I'm just going to throw them at the team and see whether they have any thoughts on them. The highest consensus graded guy, I think, is still Will Campbell, left tackle, left guard. From LSU, I know that Ant obviously said don't kick Campbell inside, but obviously there is talk about the fact that people might want to do that. 6'6", 323 pounds, 3-year starter at LSU, consistently highly graded throughout, although a big uptick in penalties throughout his career. 1 in 22, 5 in 23, 9 in 24. So not trending particularly in the right direction, but I'm sure there are reasons for that. Boys, have you seen a lot from Will Campbell at all? Obviously, he's, I think, maybe one of the biggest question marks in the entire draft because there's such discourse about where this guy lands. Some people have him as a top 5 pick. Some people have him as the best interior guy, but you don't want to draft him until later on day one. There's big variation here about where this guy plays at the next level that potentially you don't have from a lot of the rest of the class in the first round. I don't mean offensive line, but just generally. There are questions here that you perhaps don't have with other players.
He's called Will Campbell. I've always thought he's known as Jared versus Bitch, you know, the part of the way he abused him for 2 seasons when they played him. But being realistic, for me, you at least try him at left tackle. This is someone, he's even said it when he was asked about it at his pro day. He has shown on tape that he can get over the limitations of the arm length and that. So why don't you at least try him there? And then, if it doesn't work, you move him inside. It's not like the other guys where, there's enough flaws on the tape playing tackle that, it's probably best you move him inside. With Campbell, you have got years of tape of him playing exceptionally well against top-tier SEC competition. I hate that I'm perpetuating that myth the SEC is be-all and end-all with stuff, but it's true when he's gone up against Ole Miss's line this year and so on. If he's shown he can hang with them, so you stick him at tackle. And if it doesn't work, then you move him inside and you try again with another player. But for now, you take him high, you try him at left tackle.
I mean, he started as a true freshman when he first played you guys. That was his very first game in college football, so maybe that's a little bit harsh to him there. But I say in that sentence there, he started as a true freshman at left tackle for a premier SEC side, and he has never let that position go. There are very few guys who get the start there when they are a true freshman and have never played a snap in college football before, and there's a reason why you start them there, and that's because apart from an inch on his arms, he's got every other attribute you want from a left tackle in the NFL, a career left tackle in the NFL. The size of him, not just his arms, the strength he plays with, the power that he has, all those things you need, he has. And it's been a learning curve for him over the 3 years, but playing blindside's difficult, especially when you do it from day one, especially when you're in the SEC as well. When you think of some of the guys who've come out of there in the last few years, and that is your assignment week in, week out. For me, as a bare minimum, you do draft him. You don't just, some people say just give him a side. You give him the chance. And for me, I listen to him talk, and the dude's got a massive chip on his shoulder. The amount of shit people are talking about him has really lit a fire under him, and I feel like that's going to backfire on those who don't get him in this draft cycle. I think sometimes you can overthink things. Sometimes just watch his tape. And this is me coming off the back of watching him get bitched by Walter Nolan. Like, really, I still think that there is a great left tackle in there. I think he's consensus. He is one of the best tackles in this draft. I think you should keep him at tackle. And I think he will prove people wrong. He's got every single attribute you need, apart from this much on his arms.
Yeah, he's definitely a tackle for me. I think what's really impressive about him, even this year, which is his worst year as a starter, apparently, which I think there's a really big reason why that happened, and I'll go into that in a second. He had apparently his best games against UCLA, who we just talked about with having a good pass rush, and Ole Miss, who obviously have maybe the best defensive line in the country, especially going up against the edge players, Milum and also going up against Ivy and what have you. He had himself a day. Now, the only thing I will say about Campbell is that you are not drafting him to maul people. He is not, for me, ever going to be the sort of run-blocking left tackle that you kind of run consistently behind because he's going to bury people. For me, he's exceptionally gifted as a finesse tackle. And I honestly, I don't care about pigeonholing him in that way because he's so bloody good at it. Like, I just don't think he's going to be giving up many sacks in his entire career at left tackle. And what more do you want? I think he's absolutely terrific. Now, his grade does take a little bit of a tumble in 2024. Missed giving up penalties. And with the penalties, that was a consistent thing all the way through the year. There were only 4 games out of the 13 that they played, 12 that they played, where he didn't give up a penalty. He had in his first 2 years Jaden Daniels at quarterback, I think, or at least in 2023 it was Jaden Daniels at LSU. 2024 saw Garrett Nussmeier, and frankly, I think Nussmeier's him being a rookie showed. Hanging onto the ball a little bit more, being a little bit more inexperienced in the offense. Obviously, Jaden Daniels was a 5-year player at that point, 4 or 5 year player. A lot more tenured, a lot more experience in the system. I think Nussmeier being a rookie just showed in Campbell's play. So I don't think that's a stick people should beat him with. If he goes into a system that has a tenured quarterback who, doesn't bait some of his players into having to hold a little bit longer or what have you, then that's going to show. So that's, for me, the reason why some of the penalties happened a little bit more. I think for me, it's a bit more on the quarterback. I'm very, very high on Campbell as a prospect. I wouldn't hesitate to take him top 10, to be honest. I think he's that good. Is he your best tackle, or do you have someone else here? Because there are several other tackles that we're about to talk about, including Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons.
If the Lions were picking top 10 and needed a tackle, Kelvin Banks will be top of my list.
Well, let's talk. Let's talk about Kelvin Banks then. So, what do you think about him?
Another guy who started at left tackle as a freshman and has just absolutely destroyed each and everything that's been put in his way as he's gone along. And he's been a part of this renaissance that Texas football has gone through. For me, I love everything about him. And he is, in terms of, a left tackle that can, get down to the second level, can do all the stuff we do here. I would have no issue, if we drafted him and he's Taylor's replacement in the long term. I'd do that if you were up there. For me, he's just physically dominant. He is incredibly athletic. You can run all sorts of run schemes you want to with him. Of course, they've had quarterbacks who can run the ball there as well. His range is just crazy as a blocker. And he's scheme versatile. Obviously, the system changes between when they use Quinn and Arch there. So, and he's had to block for Arch in a few games. It completely changes the way they run about it because Arch is a dual threat guy as well when he wants to be. But it's just the way he plays the game. He's just all dominating. And again, when he's not in that Texas team, and he's had a couple of little injuries here and there where he's not been in, you can tell the difference. They just lose some of that aura about them that's made them so good these last few years. But he's got the tools, he's got the experience, he's got everything you want in a left tackle at the next level. And for me, that's the only thing he has over Campbell is he does have the size. Again, like I said, I don't really care about Campbell's arm size, but when you're pairing the two together and you get the more secure out, I think they're both incredibly good tackles, but Banks just has that little bit more about him. You say, Campbell might not be that road mauling type in the league, the guy who does all that stuff. Kelvin Banks will be, but he's also very nifty on his feet. He can deal with all the types of edge rushers you need. It's just his level of aggressiveness is something that I would value a little bit more than what Campbell does. But they're still both top 10 prospects. Put it this way, I would hate to see him end up in the NFC North. I see a lot of mocks saying the Bears take him there. I would not like that at all. I think he would be perfect for the way they play, and it would make that line really good. But yeah, the aggression is what bars the two out for me. But they're both top 10 picks. But Kelvin Banks he's just, for me, he's amazing. I love him. I just love these aggressive guys, and yeah, he's it.
Ash.
I haven't seen as much of him, but again, I know obviously there's people saying slide him inside because he's got 33.5-inch arms. It's again the arm length, but again, he's got on tape that he can work with it and he does well. The only issue with him really is that sometimes he has a bit of lack of grip strength and he's a bit susceptible to some push pull moves. But everything else about him is good. Again, for me, slightly better for me and also for PFF, the limited bits I've seen off him, slightly better in zone schemes than gap schemes, but he's definitely got the aggression and play strength to play in a gap scheme. So yeah, if the Bears decide to take him at 10 and slot him at left tackle, that really does upgrade their offensive line, and that's pretty damn good for Caleb. So I don't want to see that. But yeah, he's still my tackle 3, I want to say. I have Campbell over him. I have another guy who we're probably going to mention in a second, slightly above him, but the gap between my 2 and 3 is very, very close. So it's interchangeable, really.
I've not seen a lot of him, I have to say, so I'm not going to spend too much time on him, but I trust Ant's eval there on him. One thing that's very notable is how much his run blocking grade jumped in 2024. Like, he really elevated himself. Again, another player who's consistently seen his penalties increase over his college career. I can't speak to why. Vandy in particular was a game where he had 2 penalties and a poor run blocking grade. It's the only poor grade on his entire board, but whatever. Next guy to mention is Josh Simmons from Ohio State, who had his college career ended by a knee injury during the Oregon game in week 7. So there's a big question mark for him about his medicals and how he's recovered from that. He is 6'5", 310. He's a 3-year starter, first year with San Diego State, and then the last 2 or 1.5 with Ohio State. Seems like he's a consistently kind of first round guy. Boys, what do you think of Josh Simmons? If anything.
I'm not as high on him as others are. For me, it's just because from what I've seen, it's what I was mentioning with Savaiinaea, where damn good pass blocker, but the run blocking just isn't there yet. Maybe that's something that obviously could be something that works on. But for me, the disparity is enough where I'm dropping him down. Plus, there's obviously the injury questions of what he's coming off the ACL, where he still probably will be taken top 50. He could easily turn into sort of middle ground Decker, again, lazy helmet scouting, top Christian Darrisaw. But for me, because you need to work on the run blocking, it does knock him down below Banks, below some of the people we've mentioned, just because you've got a bit more of a base to work with, rather than you've got an excellent trait and then something that's really, really bad, and he's going to be basically a liability. And
have you seen any of him at all?
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know much about the Ohio State trench prospects. I've not watched. I've gone either side of the line. I'm not too clued up on them, so not really.
Fair enough. I also haven't seen a huge amount of him, so I will very quickly move on. The only other guy I have potentially in fringe first round consideration is Tyler Booker, but I know that really splits opinion. I know that he's fallen quite a bit, but he was in first round consideration for a long time in this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
The reaction from Ash, I think, speaks volumes. What do you think?
I think he's reacting that way because someone died, apparently.
No, you forgot someone.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Someone died, apparently.
Oh,
exactly.
Who have I forgotten?
Armand Membu.
Oh, Membu. Sorry, yeah, he's risen.
Everyone's.
Yes, sorry. My bad. Go on then.
I've had him pulled up 4 times, and every time we've got someone else, I was like, but yeah, quickly on Booker, I do like him. I know, obviously, Raz has killed him. You don't need that in a power gap scheme. for me, still not a first rounder just because it's just not that he's a solid second round guard pick. The Eagles will probably take him as own masterful though. With Membu, I can see why people really love him. The athleticism there, it's just he definitely had a breakout, like not giving up a sack or a hit this year. It's a bit of athletic projection. You're betting on the sort of athleticism. I prefer Campbell, and he's very close to Banks, where I am then banking on the athleticism. That's a tiebreaker, but him being the first tackle off the board, I don't agree with.
My mistake, by the way. He's risen a very long way in this process. Sorry. And you want to speak on either of those guys as well?
Booker, weird, because loads of people were projecting him to the Lions in the pre-draft cycle, and loads of people like that fit. Then Ras came out, then everyone forgot about him. Well, why did you want him to come to the Lions beforehand then if a few stats are going to take you off him? Like, there's a reason he was in first round. There's a reason all these guys are in first round consideration. He has been a road grader for this Bama team, and like the Bama offensive line, fair enough, the top elite tier prospects have dried out from that program in recent years, but you've seen with like the defensive line players, a lot of very underrated players on this team, especially the guards. They go completely under the radar, but you watch the way he plays, the way he moves, right? He's going to start day one in the NFL somewhere, and there's a reason why he's going to do that, because again, he's highly talented. So probably probably the fact that he's a guard is the only reason he'll get kicked out the first round. I think you ignore the RAS because it's not really important to him. So yeah, it's again, I don't want us to be the one. I'm not too crazy about having a guard first off. I do want the defensive line guys, so I don't look at many of these guard prospects at 28 there. But I think again, it's unfair some of the hate he's getting.
Membu's rise and his athletic profile, I have not watched him on tape, reminds me of Talis Foranga last year.
Yeah. I preferred Foranga, but that's a very good comparison.
Yeah. All right. Just had a comment saying, man, you guys got old. We've been doing this for almost 5 years now, so I guess it had to happen at some point. It's too true. Life is hard sometimes. Anyway, that's all of our guys. We had some questions from Perry Ball that I just want to very quickly address. Asked us what we thought of Joshua Gray, guard from Oregon, and Gus Hartwig, center from Purdue. Either of you seen either of those?
I've seen the Gray. It's tough. Like, as a run blocking wise, hell yeah. Pass blocking wise, no. It's you can maybe coach it out. You can coach him on it, but you there's a reason why his sort of projection has tanked all the way from being a like day 2 pick to now bottom of like the draft UDFA territory. I know he stuck around at Oregon State when everyone else went to Michigan State with the head coach, and which gives him some lead, like some plus points, but just shorter arms, even for a guard, lack of strength, below average pass blocker. Even though he's got the experience and he can spot stunts, just doesn't have the power to deal with them. He is someone that you bring in as a priority UDFA if you want, and then you try and coach him up on the practice squad. I'm not drafting him personally.
And any thoughts on either of those guys?
I like Gus. I've said we've been looking at centre prospects, because we want someone behind Frank at some point going forward. For me, he's good. He's not as good as Drew Kendall is. I prefer Drew Kendall at the position because I think he's more technically refined and he's a better run blocker than what Gus is. Gus is really good in pass protection. Again, he's just been lost on a truly god-awful Purdue team, which means a lot of his good work has gone on demand. And I wouldn't look at his stats much either because he's not exactly got much help from the guys in his position group. But I think he's a solid prospect. I think if you're looking for a day 3 center for the Lions and you do want a general prospect in there, he would be on the list. Let's say just behind Drew. I think there's something you can mold with him there. He's 6'5", so generally I don't like my centers that tall. Drew's a little bit small. I prefer them to be a little on the shorter side, but yeah, he's on the board for day 3 if you want a center backup.
All right. Grandice has come in saying, apparently I look a bit thinner. Unfortunately, I've put on plenty of weight because of the holiday, but thanks. I think it's the haircut somehow. I don't know how. All right. Anyway, I think that's all we've got. There's still 51 minutes left on this Monday here in the UK. So I, unfortunately, need to go back and do some work. But thank you to everyone for your questions and for listening, for us going on about this. Our next show is going to be on the main show in 7 days' time, where we're going to be covering the quarterbacks, which is our last positional group we do before doing 2 consecutive rounds of mock drafts, 1 7-round Lions mock draft, and then a full first round mock, because yes, we are almost there. 3.5 weeks to go until the NFL draft. And college podcast this week, what have you got on the agenda? Do you have an agenda at this moment?
I'm not going to lie, I don't have a clue about what I'm going to do at this moment in time, but we will be there. I've just been doing draft stuff today, so yeah, I can't say exactly, but we will be there. And the new prospect video will be dropping soon as well, as I mentioned. It's Walter Nolan time. It's long, but it's good. So if you want to, check that out as well. I know the Ricky and Donovan videos did well, so.
Long and good is Walter Nolan anyway. So I like the fact that the video masks that. Ash is trying not to laugh. Anyway, hey, so we've got some good episodes coming, as well as Ant's prospect videos. Izaraku. I can't ever say that name properly, but it's a cracking vid, so go and check that out. Otherwise, you know where to follow us. We're all on UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. It is going to be a terrific draft show coming, so 3.5 weeks' time, we'll be live for 24 hours in the 4 days that we do this. There's probably going to be a betting show the day before we go on to day 1 as well, so if you guys have some draft bets that you'd like to see, whether the over-unders, whatever our thoughts are on how many of this or that are going to be taken, that's going to happen too. And then we're going to have a great array of guests. So going to be some events going up online for that. We'd love to see you interact with that. Otherwise, just remains for me to thank Ant and Ash for doing this for me, and to all of you for listening. We'll see you for the college show later on in the week. But for now, let's go Lions. One Pride.
One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.